Okay, so Super Soap Week Street Talk, Gemma.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we're doing today, isn't it? One story this week, so it made my notes nice and easy. Thank you very much, Coronation Street. We're calling it Final Read Through. Because he is through, he is done with. I could have done read out or read over. There's so many puns that I could come with. That's what I came up with in the end.
Or the end of Coronation Street, because this is my final episode.
Gemma, there'll be other serial killers. Don't worry.
Do you really think so?
I think they're yeah. Don't worry. They like a good serial killer. You do.
I know,
sure
but
you
I have to wait ages. When was Pat Phelan?
He died in what? 2018, 2019,
We get like 2 years
maybe?
off, don't we? Like 2 or 3.
I would say that the frequency of serial killer appearance in Coronation Street, it certainly is. They are accelerating. So there's probably going to be one next week. Peter's probably going to bump someone else off. He's like, well, Stephen didn't kill anyone else in the final week, and I've got the bloodlust now. So sorry, who's it going to be? Adam, off you go.
And it's so easy. Why didn't I do this before?
So before we get started, then, overall, and I know you're still trying to put your thoughts together and everything. Did you enjoy watching it this week? How was your viewing experience and your anticipation really of the episodes and things?
Right, because I think this is my own fault, and this is a an artifact of doing the podcast too, and being a super mega fan. Is that you kind of ruin everything for yourself, don't you? Because you think about stuff and you predict things and you come up with ideas or theories, and because whatever you come up with is like a multitude of things happening simultaneously, and the reality can only ever be one thing, right? It kind of doesn't feel like it can live up to your imagination. Does that make sense? And it's not really, it's not that, it's my own fault. It's not Corrie's fault that all these ideas I've been brewing, they can only do one thing, and they obviously, I think it feels very clear to me that Stephen's death was not Stephen's story. It's the story of Peter Barlow and what is going to happen and how is he... I think a lot of people miss that, though. I really think that quite a lot of people... There was... We'll get to it, won't we?
Mm.
It felt like there were some big hints there that there's not just the interviews that we saw, but the scene that I pointed out to you.
Which
feels
one?
like, well, the bit we'll get to.
Okay.
It feels like there's more to the story, and I tell you what, if that's it, if they didn't make more out of this, I'm going to get super mad. But
I think that maybe Peter's not going to be getting away with this.
No, that's not my point.
And a good story, a good finale to a big story does need to spark things off for others, because otherwise it's going to be like, oh, it's all over and everything's okay. They still want you to keep on watching.
Right, can I just say, definitely agree with that, because that was one of my major reasons I think that the tram crash is one of Corrie's greatest episodes ever, because it spun out in so many other directions, all the different storylines. But equally, there's a lot to be said for, closing the book on something in a satisfying way, and I don't really think that they did that with Stephen. I feel like it was like, and then that's the end of the chapter, and now it's actually, we're reading a different story, but it's still the same book, if that makes sense. It's like if you watched Star Wars and Luke Skywalker just died halfway through, and then they're like, it's not actually about Luke Skywalker, it was always about Princess Leia, and you're like, who the hell is this chick? She's only been in it for 5 minutes, moaning about her planet blown up with a really dodgy British accent. I don't care about her. I want to see Luke Skywalker.
As we were watching those final scenes, just when Peter ran over Stephen with his car, we were even sitting
spoiler.
on... Sorry, people know. We were sitting on different sofas even tonight, and we both kind of looked over each other and we gave each other a look as in a, is that it sort of look. And I think, although I had an immensely enjoyable week watching Corrie this week, this is the most gripped I've been about Coronation Street for a good few months. I'm not going to say years. The actual climax in tonight's episode did leave me going, oh.
Right, I'm going to say something about this, and that is, they clearly wanted this to be a story about, was Peter justified? There's probably going to be a big court case. All these interviews are from next week. So they obviously needed it to be done in a specific way, so that they couldn't really do much else with it. It had to be the way that they filmed it. But it really feels like they missed such a trick with Stephen, because he was always very physically intimidating and incredibly violent. So his death should have involved that physicality and menace, but it didn't. He was just on the road and he got run over. Anyone could have got run over. Like, literally any character, that you could have killed any character that way. Feels unfair that he died
just by getting hit by a car that kind of came out of nowhere. And I know that I said, it's not Stephen's story now. They dangled the car out there earlier in the episode by having Peter driving around next to them.
I could not believe how many scenes we got to bloody have to watch with Peter driving around the ring road. He's making traffic. Do you know what I mean? Every time he cut to Stephen, I was like, why are we watching this guy driving around? I don't care. I know that there are massive Peter fans. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the character, but it did feel a lot like, I don't need to see Peter driving in his taxi on the phone to Carla. Carla's not in danger. Peter's not in danger. It didn't feel like it was building up to anything, even though it was in the end. But you don't rewatch. This is the trouble with a soap. You don't really rewatch a soap in the same way that you might rewatch a movie or a television show. No one's gonna. There's not going to be lots of people that go, I want to watch that episode again, and then they watch it and go, wow, it's really tense now. You know that Peter's going to end up killing Stephen. You get to see all these scenes and it builds up to the death.
That's not how it's going to work. Every time, and it wasn't loads, but every time that Peter appeared in Tonight episode, I was just thinking, I don't care about that. Get back to Stephen, get back to Jenny.
Yeah.
And then when he actually showed up in the end, I thought, oh, that's I suppose it's very fitting for this story that by pure coincidence, the moment Stephen happened to be in the middle of the street, Peter happened to be driving down through the viaduct.
I think that. Okay, but that's going to feed into the whole point of the plot.
Yeah, but it's the timing was very coincidental. I don't want to start on a downer, because I did like a lot of this week's.
What have I done wrong?
No, you haven't. I said we're both being a bit of a downer. But yeah, overall, and you said that you built things up because you're a mega super fan or a super mega fan or whatever you said, and you came up with the theories and everything. But I will still insist that it was not unreasonable to expect Stephen to have another victim this week. I think that's my biggest disappointment with the week. Not necessarily the way that he died, although I am a bit disappointed on that. I was very, very convinced. I was like 95% convinced going into this week that we'd have another victim. I don't know why. Had Coronation Street said that he's going to claim another victim? I don't know, because I don't watch the spoilers. But as the months have gone on, we just built ourselves into this surety that he was going to have one final person, a character of significance, when in the end his body count is Leo, Teddy and Rufus, none of which have any kind of significance to the Coronation Street whatsoever.
Well, two of them were clearly brought in to be killed by Stephen, and one of them was incredibly anodyne.
Well, one of them was a little bit like, remember that guy who was involved in the sinkhole a year ago? Well, he wasn't just a one-off character. Yeah, exactly. So
and here's another. Where's Gabrielle gone?
Yeah, didn't get any Gabrielle.
Scot-free. Why couldn't he have killed her?
Maybe she'll be there at the funeral.
And Elaine.
Even Elaine. They brought Elaine back.
Honestly, what are you doing?
There was a lot of teasing.
What's she going to do?
There was an awful lot of teasing of, is somebody dead? Is somebody going to be dead this week? There were times this week, and this is the one thing I really like. One of the things I liked about this week, thinking, ooh, maybe Tim is dead, or... Actually, I never thought that Tim was dead. I was definitely worried for Jenny's safety after the end of Wednesday's episode. There was no point really during this week where I thought, oh yes, Elaine is going to get killed. Even the likes of, say, Sarah Louise, Adam and Michael, when they went into the Rovers in today's episode, I was like, one of them's going to be killed off. So it was good that they had me on my toes for that. But then, rather than say, actually it's nobody... If they'd have just put in a surprise death, it would have lifted it a little bit for me.
I'm not going to disagree. I 100% think he should have killed somebody. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think that we got it out of nowhere. 3 is the minimum. There was even a comment about 3 being the minimum for a serial killer in the show.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were like, yeah, literally, we're telling you we're doing the bare minimum within this storyline feels a bit annoying.
And you know the
waves
that
risks.
would have been made by bravely bumping off a main character.
And I don't want anyone to
I think
die.
literally the only person that I wouldn't have sacrificed for a shock value here would be Jenny.
Yeah.
If Jenny had been killed off today, I'd have been like,
so much trouble.
I'm over, I'm done with this. But I think literally anybody else, if he'd have killed them, I'd have been like, yes, this is amazing. You've killed off a huge character.
Yeah.
And now it's just like...
Wow. I mean, when Adam turned up with his new haircut today, I was thinking, oh...
Yeah, he's made himself all look, so he looks nice in rigor mortis.
Is he dressed... Well, also, but is he dressed up for Sarah's funeral? I don't know.
He doesn't even need to do his hair nice, does he? Because Audrey has had experience cutting corpses' hair, so she could have done it post-mortem for him. But no, Adam turning up was a bit of a red herring at the end there. Right, I feel like we're just awash with negativity at the moment, I don't want to give that impression, and it's coming from both of us. I don't think that I'm accusing you of it. It's probably coming more from me at the moment because you're being more tactful as usual. What?
Go on. Yeah.
No, I was just pausing to let you.
You're going to read it.
But, yes, I don't know how you want to do this. Are we going to do a whole episode each, or should we take over halfway?
Whole episode, why not?
Well, but I don't know whether I want to do 2 whole episodes and you just do 1. I might have a little bit of a pause part way through, and I don't know whether we'll kind of stop to discuss things as we go, or whether we leave all the discussion at the end. That might go a long way.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. Let's just take it. Let's just play it by ear and see what we think. So, we had these flash forwards this week, didn't we? And it was somewhat reminiscent of the Toya and Imran final week just last year. It was almost like Coronation Street said, oh, we quite like that, let's do that again. Oh, EastEnders have got big flash forwards this year to the Christmas murder. Why don't we do that? How did you find those?
It did feel a bit like not as successfully done as the last year's one. Also, it's like literally to the day, you know. No,
it was that was Britain's Got Talent week.
Okay.
It was to last year's big week. How did you find that it wasn't? Because with me, it was just a fact that it was only interview scenes. I suppose that made it different in a way, but it didn't intrigue me enough. All it kind of did was say, these people survive.
What it made me realise is that there's a significant part of the story still to come. Because, like I said, this is not Stephen's story now. This is Peter Barlow's story. And all these people have been interviewed about whether Peter was justified to kill Stephen or not.
Well, I think it seemed like Michael and Sarah and Carla's interviews from the brief snippets we got were more Swain trying to ascertain, did you really not know anything about Stephen Reid being a massive killer? And Michael, poor innocent Michael, going, oh, I had no idea, I'm only an idiot. And Sarah was, I can't remember. She was in the hospital, and I think we guessed that on Wednesday, didn't we? Because we realised that there were black backgrounds and white backgrounds, and Sarah was the only one that had a white background, and we didn't really even pick it up on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we were like, oh, how come they're in the dark and she's in the light? What's happened here? If Corrie was a bit more abstract, it might have been her in heaven. I know, yeah.
Being interviewed by Jesus, like, well, what did you do? But no, it wasn't obviously that. So I think then you sort of think, oh, white is very hospitally.
Yeah.
She looks like she's sort of maybe been injured in some way. I mean, not really good enough, was it? She didn't get smacked about enough for my liking. Nobody was in mortal peril.
Well, she was whacked over the head when Stephen bopped her on the bonce on tonight's episode. I thought, oh, maybe they have done this, but then I thought, oh no, wait, we've seen her in a flash forward, and I forgot that all week I was thinking, well, Sarah doesn't die then, and she'd been going into this week. I'd been convinced that she was a really strong candidate, but straight from having that, it kind of spoilt it, thinking no, she's not, unless I thought on Monday, maybe this is flash forwarding to Wednesday and maybe she gets bumped off on Friday. But once they went through Wednesday's episode and they still didn't show those scenes, it felt like she was a lot safer.
See, this is what I'm saying about they've done a calculated thing here where they've decided to sacrifice some of the drama that they could have gotten out of Stephen's death, and they're using it for Peter's story. And that's, you know, I mean, a lot of people can argue that that's the right move here, because Peter Barlow's a legacy character. He's a big name, and he's a more popular character. So pivoting at the very end to turn it into a different character story, who's more popular, you know, it feels like a good idea. But from my perspective as somebody who really invested 100% into this Stephen storyline, it does feel like I was shortchanged, both on like the tension. There was no tension because you knew that some of the big names weren't going to get killed off. You knew, like, when he died, it was kind of anticlimactic. Immediately it turns into Peter's story, and he didn't kill an extra person that he could have
It's
done.
a little bit like how Ryan hijacked Daisy's stalker storyline, isn't it? By getting the acid in the face and going, my turn now.
See, there's a lot to be said about some stories organically moving from one stage to another, but it does feel a bit like Corrie is kind of distracted by shiny things too much. Like, never mind about that. There's another shiny thing over here. Well, we haven't really closed the door on this other thing properly. Anyway, you're going to read this.
But I think that we're going to the end again, but it's fine. I don't think that Stephen's going to be completely forgotten about now, because it was clear from those that interview that Audrey had with the police officer at the end of the episode that she's now got an axe to grind against Peter Barlow.
That's my point.
Maybe this will be.
Go on.
Maybe I was just going to say, maybe this is going to be the Barlow Platt feud that we've been wanting all this time.
Yeah. See, another thing I predicted in my Stephen Reid finale.
You did.
I did.
So yeah, with the flash forwards, they were okay, but they didn't tease me in the same way as the Imran and Toya ones did, which was just showing little snippets from the week, and then as the week went on, you reached them, you know, and you go, that's how they got there. Oh, so when they flashed they were here now, and this was all just flashing to the very, very end of the week. So I think it was on Monday's episode, they had flash forward throughout the episode, whereas Wednesdays it was just at the beginning and Fridays it was just at the beginning. The thing that my mini theory, and maybe this was just me clutching at straws after Sarah was hit on the head today, was that
Can we say bonked on the bonds?
Yeah, but she was just bonked on the bonds. my crackpot theory was that maybe Sarah's flash forwards are actually flashbacks, and then it would be revealed at the end that she does get killed, and those scenes that we're seeing with her being interviewed by Swain is a previous interview that happened.
And Swain's watching it.
Yeah, that we haven't seen, and we go, this was that time when Sarah. I can't even think what it could be.
I know, but this is the thing. This is what I mean about fans ruining it for themselves, and we're doing this, and we're complicit in this. This is what happened to Game of Thrones. This is what happened to Lost.
Yeah.
The internet is a blight for this. We cannot help ourselves. We get so excited, invested, and it's all very well also to come up with all these ideas like Captain Hindsight and be all smart and, you know, I think this would have been a better idea. We're not in the thick of it. This is so much more complicated than just sitting on your bum on a Friday night going, I know what they should have done here.
It's so easy to criticise.
I totally understand, and I'm not at once ever saying that I would ever be able to do this better than anybody else. And definitely not the people that are doing the show. It's just very frustrating when you sort of think, oh man, I wish, but you know,
it's because
we've got what we got.
When you build a picture in your mind and you think, yeah, that's going to be great, and when it doesn't happen, you don't stop to think, well, what actually happened was actually still good.
Yeah.
You think, well, it wasn't what I convinced myself was going to happen. Because you're building off of
something that you never would have come up with in the first place. You're just riffing off of something that somebody else has done already. It's not really that creative to come in after somebody else has already done the hard work and go, wow, I think that. But anyway, I do like that idea, darling. I don't mean to
No, it's fine. You can have that one, Coronation. Just
use that later.
Don't use it straight away. We don't need flash forward, to become a regular feature of Coronation Street.
Yearly.
No, not an annual thing, please. But anyway, so we had our flash forwards, and
so we've got Carla and Michael and Sarah.
Yeah,
and they're all kind of defending themselves, aren't they?
Yeah,
I can't remember what they're saying.
No, I can't remember. I think as the flash forwards went on, as the week went on, it became a little bit clearer what they were talking about. But Sarah's clearly...
We knew that it was going to be Stephen.
Yeah, well, yeah. Michael was clearly just saying, I don't know anything about it. I can't even remember what Carla's
I'm just a dumb but lovable idiot.
Carla's... I think Swain was eventually asking Carla, why did you even do this? So I guess...
Well, I don't know.
I don't know what she was talking about. And maybe even the same to Sarah Louise as well. But it was clear from Sarah's running mascara, and she had... It looked like she'd been scuffed up a bit and dirty, but I think it was just a mascara.
It was very interesting seeing the men going, why has she got dirt on her face? And the women like, look at her makeup. It's
just
totally
panderise. I'd also like to say, Tina O'Brien, I do think you're wonderful. I'm sorry for really baying for your blood.
We need to apologise to a lot of people here that we've killed off.
For the past month.
Yeah.
I was willing, like I said, to sacrifice pretty much anyone other than Jenny for this story. But I'm glad that we've still got plenty more years of Sarah Louise to come. I'm not
sad that this is a key point I want everyone to understand. I'm not sad that the people that are alive are still alive. Even Tim, okay? Because like some people that I don't like who have died, I wouldn't want him to be canonised in death. I want him to carry on.
What sort of tribute do you think they'd have for Tim if he got murdered?
Oh, he was always such a good, fun lad, blokey, nice.
They'd probably have a gold statue of him erected outside number 6 in the front garden.
Let him live on disgracing himself so everyone can see that Tim is not that great. And then eventually, say 5 years' time, when he's finally done the 500th stupid thing, people can go, God, you know what? I wish he had died when Stephen locked him in that boot. Gemma was right all along.
Right. Well, Monday's episode was all about Tim, wasn't it?
But yeah, to be clear, I'm not. I didn't want anyone to die specifically, but another kill in general was all I wanted.
Right.
Is that all? It's not too much to ask. I know it's not my birthday anymore.
Not. Still your birthday month, darling. So we see Jenny straightening Stephen's tie. I thought that this was going to turn into, at one point during the week, that Tim would maybe be found... Because he was tied up with this tie later, wasn't he? And I wonder... when Stephen tied him and threw him in the back of the boot, his hands were tied behind him with Stephen's...
That was last week.
No, that was this week. You're not even remembering. That was this week. Oh my gosh. I was wondering whether Jenny would say, hang on a minute, that was the tie that I was putting on him earlier this week. But anyway, they didn't go anywhere.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So anyway, speaking of ties, Stephen is daydreaming as she's doing this of becoming a Thai resident himself in his new life over in Bangkok. And he's I can't remember how he even brings it up, but he asked her about fishing and wouldn't you like to be sitting on the edge of the river? Give me a Thai river.
Goodness me, how am I supposed to know?
And saying, look, does anyone here like fishing? Does maybe Tim go fishing at the canal? And she says, Tim wouldn't be seen dead down the canal. Cue the beginning of numerous references to, and lines dropped in there for
Tim's death.
Tim's dead. He's dead to me. I'm going to kill Tim.
Also, I like the idea that Stephen saw Tim at the side of the canal with a stick poking, and he thought, okay, maybe he's just fishing and he doesn't know how it works.
Yeah.
That is definitely what Tim would do. I don't know. I went down the canal and I poked at a stone.
Water.
Nothing happened.
Tried to get me a minnow.
Rubbish.
Well, maybe he's a bit of a caveman, isn't he, Tim? So maybe with spearfishing is his thing.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of Tim, we then get to see over at number 6, Happy Banana-versary, Sally. I've got you a lovely anniversary card, and he says he's going to give her a day to remember, and doesn't he just?
Another soap phrase of doom.
Yeah, it was somewhat, wasn't it? Meanwhile, over at where do Carla and Peter live? Above the book, where they're over the streetcars, aren't they? Peter's badgering Carla about Stephen, and she's like, "Look, I know that he's a massive wrong-un, but I can't do anything about it. Swain's told me I got to just sit still, and they'll sort it all out. Don't worry, Craig's on the case."
Ryan's just in his room with his
Oh yeah, what's
willy
wrong?
out.
What's Ryan been doing
I
all
am
this
so
week?
relieved people have leave me alone for once.
Yeah, he is. He's like, brilliant. I got the flat to,
Do you think he's
flat
like,
to myself while all this drama's going on.
Weirdly though, my biggest customer, T-Dog's not hitting me up so much. I wonder where he is.
Turns out it's Stephen.
No, it's T-Dog. It's Tim.
Oh, Tim. Oh yeah, T, not for Todd. Okay, so anyway, Peter's like, well, it's not going to stop me doing something if you're not going to. I know you've been told I'm going to do something. By the end of this week, he's dead man. And
no, he doesn't say that.
He says, look, you're not going into work with him. And she says, I can do whatever I want. This isn't your decision.
Yeah.
Over at the cafe, Stephen and Jenny are there. And he says, look, I just want you to keep the move secret for now. And let's get it all sorted first. And then we'll let people know. And Jenny says, she's happy to... Sorry,
after
you're
this
the better
week,
one.
you never have to hear this again. Oh, no, you will, because we're going to do the...
Stephen Reid.
We're going to do the...
Again. We will do a character profile. Yeah. There may be a couple of impersonations in it, I expect.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so she says, yeah, whatever. She's so...
Besotted.
head over heels with Mr. Reid that she'll keep quiet for him. And then very handily and coincidentally, and what are the chances of this happening just this very week, Brian and Mary come in and start accosting them because they're looking for helpers to dredge the canals this week.
This feels like it happened so long ago.
Who'd have thought that in the week that the body gets revealed, they just happen to be dredging the canal this week? And Stephen's like, maybe I'll sign up for that. So that he can presumably get in
to
there
the bit
first.
and not dredge it.
Yeah. But it turns out at the end of the day that they're not even dredging Teddy's lock until next year. So that's all right. So he's got a little while yet to either recover the body or...
he's going to run off to Thailand.
Run off to Thailand and hopefully nobody will put two and two together when they find it.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile, Tim's back at home cooking an anniversary tagine, making a bit of a hash job of it.
Nobody wants an anniversary tagine. Everyone's over tagines.
Sal probably thinks
tagines are like 15 years ago.
I know, but Sally's... I think that she's still into
Sally's still in like prime M&S 2005 mode.
Exactly. But she's not really happy, not very impressed with the effort he's putting into this, and he's not done enough preparation for it.
He hasn't even got the ingredients.
Then to make... He hasn't got his... What is it? Pickled walnuts, was it that he needed?
Yeah, pickled walnuts.
Yeah, I hate a tagine. I'm glad that's not in
didn't
fashion
like
anymore. Yeah, that was a bad era for food.
Your mum bought me a tagine. We both made tagines
and
talked about how much we liked making tagines.
You did. Your mum bonded over tagines, didn't you?
Always used to put apricots in them. Dried apricots were a big tagine ingredient that Michael did not
Sorry,
like.
Mum, if you're looking down on us. I don't really like tagines. It's out there. Anyway... Just to make matters worse, then Kevin comes in.
Oh, can I just also say, we had the exact same tagine. I think everyone in this country had the exact same tagine as that one.
But terracotta with green and red stripes.
I had to throw it out.
Classic tagine design.
It got cracked.
Sad. Kevin comes in. He's managed to get himself tickets to a football match where they'd be sitting in a box next to legendary second best goal scorer ever or something in Weatherfield County history, Tommy Orpington.
I thought he was disgraced.
I thought Tommy Orpington was disgraced for getting in with the Brents a couple of years ago.
I thought he was up to shady dealings.
But clearly not. Maybe that's just the headcanon that we've got for him. But anyway, I missed how Kevin's got these magic tickets, but it's quite tempting for Tim. You know, you got Tommy on one side, you got Sally the other side on the anniversary.
See,
tough
I'm thinking
decision.
to myself
so
here,
Tim's like, I need to really think this through.
If it was our anniversary and you suddenly got tickets for like, oh, it's the Spice Girls, and I get to watch it with Jerry, because she's not going to do any performance. She's going to sit there.
More likely to be Victoria in that case.
All right then, Victoria. I get to watch it with Victoria.
Yeah.
Would you? I mean, I'd let you go. I'll be like, go on then, get her drunk and see what she's... Get her to talk shit.
You're no Sally. Gemma, write that time code down for me to bleep.
Get her drunk and get her to talk smack.
Anyway, so Tim's like, I don't know, I have to give this some serious thought. And Sally's like, I can't believe you're thinking of blowing me off for Tommy Orpington. Anyway, at work, Carla catches Stephen off guard.
I know what it would be like.
What?
Watching an episode of the final episode of Stephen Reid with Todd Boys.
That's a better comparison. Yeah.
Instead of going to our anniversary. But then we'd go together, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
This is why Sally and Tim, not as brilliant a couple as everyone says they are, because they don't share likes and hobbies.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even like...
Even Annie Walker went along to the football one time to go and give it a try.
I don't even think Tim likes Zambezi. It's all just a big lie.
So, at work, Carla puts her plan into action of making out that she's actually forgiven Stephen. And she's like, sorry for the other day. I accused you of being a big LSD spiker. Must have been Rufus that did it. And he's like, oh, okay, thank you very much. That makes things easier for me. Sarah's there looking a bit awkward because she knows that Stephen has definitely got the capacity for shady business. Carla, at the end of that scene, fishes... Oh, no, I rewatched this. I wasn't sure what it was this time. So... Michael, the printer's broken or something, isn't it? And Michael's fixing it, and there's a scrunched up bit of paper that's got jammed in there, and it turns out that it's the ticket that Stephen was printing out to go to Thailand. But Michael doesn't see this, and he just throws it in the bin. But Carla, her curiosity is piqued by this, and she goes and has a look, and she's like, "Oh, what have we got here then?" Meanwhile, over in the street,
didn't he say to her that he wanted to go to Thailand though?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
I thought he said he wanted to...
He's just talking about the shop because he wanted to update his wardrobe of neckwear.
We've had people in trouble with airports and ties before on this show.
Yeah.
You can't trust them.
Oh yeah, John Lindsay. Very true, very true. If only Stephen had like a spike-lined tie. That's what James Bond would probably wear, isn't it?
Just whip it at
Tim
someone.
could have been gone and garroted by the end of Monday's episode.
I think that they missed a trick because Saw 10 came out this month.
Oh, it was good. We saw Saw 10 the other day, didn't we?
Why didn't they
Best
collaborate?
Saw film in a long time.
Why didn't they collaborate with Coronation Street and do a really elaborate trap for Tim? I would have loved that. Just watching him suffer and die.
I did really enjoy what they did with him. Anyway, so Brian is seeing Peter in the street later on and gives him the clipboard for this canal dredging petition or something. Who's going to come and help out?
It's not a petition. It's a signing up volunteer sheet.
Okay, you're right.
And Peter
says, "What's Stephen's signature doing on there? That's a bit weird. He doesn't seem like the community-minded type." And Tim also is looking mightily suspicious of Stephen's motives because he obviously knows that Stephen has got a bit of a different interest with that particular canal. So, Carla beelines down to the police station. Craig, no, I'm a proper copper here. Swain, I need you. I've just found evidence that Stephen is planning to go to Thailand. He's clearly a flight risk, and Swain's like, yes, we got him. We're gonna nail this guy, but we still can't let him know that we suspect him. Can't tell anybody else. And Kyle's like, oh, I've already told Peter. That was something that didn't actually end up going anywhere, did it?
It might go somewhere next week.
It might next week, possibly. But as the episodes were going on, a couple more people were finding out that Carla knew what Peter was like. And even there was what Stephen was like. And even there was the bit where at Ken's party, Peter reveals to Roy, don't tell anybody, but... blah, 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 blah. And I thought, oh, what's going to happen now that Roy knows? And in the end, it was nothing.
But I do think this is going to come up because it was Peter that spoke to him.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about this later. I think I think it's obvious.
Is Roy going to...
I think, I'm just going to say this because I've been alluding to this and it's driving me nuts. At the very end of the episode, when Stephen is menacing Jenny, we cut away from them... and it's a longer shot away, and they have exchanged words with one another that we do not hear. There's something that's said between the two of them that is going to end up being a massively significant part of Peter's storyline. Then we hear the sound of a bottle dropping on the floor. Now, if that was the bottle that Stephen was holding when he was trying to cut Jenny, that means that he did not have that weapon in his hand when he was run over by Peter. Audrey also says that he dropped the bottle before he got run over. So now the story is going to be, was Peter justified in running him over when he was nowhere near Jenny and he wasn't holding a weapon?
Even from what we saw, when they had that shot from Peter's point of view in the car, he was on his own in the middle of the street. Jenny was not in any danger.
Yes.
It was very clear to anybody watching that Peter didn't have to do that.
Peter did it because he didn't like Stephen, and I don't think that. I mean, that's going to be the controversial thing. I think everyone's going to have. It's clever. Corrie's pivoted into a very controversial storyline from a controversial character because there are diehard Peter fans, and also the anti-Stephen contingent are going to both be on the side of this was completely justified and Peter should have definitely run him over and killed him. So all the way through this week, it's peppered with little moments that make Stephen's guilt more obvious or not.
I'd be interested in kind of rewatching it because, to be honest, any time that Peter did stuff this week, I wasn't as interested in it because I was thinking, well, this isn't really to do with Peter. He's just a bit mad for what Stephen's done to Carla.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
No, so yeah, it would be interesting to see if Peter did drop any clues. I can totally imagine the police speaking to Roy at some point, saying, "Roy, do you think Peter held a grudge, an unreasonable grudge against Stephen?"
Say that he did it.
And has Roy learned his lesson from 2 super soap weeks ago when he lied to the police over the whole?
Kelly.
No, that was last year. It was the Abbey.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It was Abbey 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
And was she holding the gun at Corrie? And maybe Roy is going to drop Peter in it.
So
the darling Roy, friend of Carla, best friend of Carla.
Right from the beginning on Monday, Swain and Carla have this conversation where Carla reveals to Swain that Stephen's a flight risk, and that Peter knows even though Swain didn't want anyone to know. Then we immediately cut to a flash forward with Swain saying to Carla, "What were you thinking?"
That must be what were you thinking about telling
Why
Peter?
did you tell him? You knew that he was a murderer.
You would though, wouldn't you? You can tell your spouse. Come on.
But these are the little cookie crumbs that were dropped through this week that I don't think felt significant to anybody. But as soon as I saw that bit where Jenny and Stephen had that tiny little exchange, I thought there's something else going on here. And then when Stephen got run over in such a kind of lackadaisical way, I thought, yeah, the story's already not even about him. Now it's about Peter, and why did Peter do it, and did he do the right thing? Which I think is a really genius move, but I am also cannot help but feel disappointed that this character I've been watching for over a year kind of fell into just a side note in someone else's story.
I think that it's an exciting development for the story. I mean, to have Peter Barlow now as a murderer, just, him and Tracy, they can compare records, can't they?
See, I said earlier that
Ken's not going to be happy. Peter! What?
What? The Platts, I said, were the crime family of Weatherfield, but actually I think you can argue the same about the Barlows now. You got Peter and Tracy.
Well, yeah, Deirdre was sent down. I know she didn't do any of it, but still.
And Adam was a drug dealer for a little bit.
Was he?
Well, didn't Ken burn all that money?
Oh, yeah, he was involved in that, wasn't he? Drugs, something or other. Yeah.
So...
Anyway, I forgot where we were. Tim sees Kevin in the street later, and he says, "No, I'm a good husband. As much as I'd love to sit in a box with Tommy O and watch a match, you have this ticket back. I need to go and check out Summit that don't make sense. So
I need to go and poke the canal again. With a stick, because this is Tim all over. How do I solve a problem? Poke it with a stick. Well, that didn't work. Well, out of ideas.
Just try poking again. But it worked better this time.
Did.
He drives off, and Stephen is secretly watching him from Rita's cracked open front door at this point. So he goes over to the canal, does Tim. He gives it a bit of a
it again with a stick.
Poke.
Bloody hell, Tim! Honestly, you Pete Tim fans, what? Why? Come on, look at him. Look at your hero.
But he this time, this poking session ends in him finding the roof box, doesn't it? He kind of is like, oh, I don't know. He bashed it on something, and I think if it was me, I wouldn't immediately think, oh, that's something suspicious down there. I'd just think that maybe there's a giant rock. But anyway, Tim is cleverer than I, and he goes and finds a bigger stick with a hook on the end of it. It's like the evolution of man in action, isn't it?
It was like watching
first stick, and now the development of tools is of 2001 here.
Space Odyssey, yeah. He's just the monkey jumping up and down with a stick, poking at a roof box.
Was the roof box the monolith?
Yeah.
It's just fallen in the water.
It's not quite as iconic, I suppose, when it's horizontal.
Anyway, so he's got his upgraded stick, and he's going to go and have a bit of a fish around. But we don't get to see that yet, because now we're back with Jenny and Rita in the cabin, and Jenny's like, oh, I've got so much to do, I'm going to go to Thailand soon. And Daniel's there. Now, this didn't turn into anything particularly, did it? Him overhearing Rita wishing Jenny the best of luck with getting her jabs, or asking her whether she needs jabs. I can't remember what it was.
Maybe this turns into something with how complicit Jenny was with Stephen, but I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Although I don't think it was a secret.
Held at glass point.
Stephen had told Jenny, keep it quiet, that we're going to Thailand, hadn't he? I can't remember whether she had actually told anybody else. Maybe she hadn't, and maybe Jenny is going to be suspected of being involved in it. But Daniel's going to be the one to say, "Well, yeah, this makes sense now."
A bit of a waste of time otherwise.
Anyway, so Jenny makes some remark about, "Oh no, I'm doing boxer size and I'm talking about jabs for that." I wouldn't necessarily believe that. It wasn't the most convincing lie, but it's not too bad. Doesn't you come up with on the spot? Stephen would do a better job. I think he'd
say, jab you in the face, Daniel, mind your own goddamn business.
So Sarah's with Roy. She's saying she's unloading onto him about Rufus and the drugs and Carla getting LSD'd up and everything, and she's also a little bit confused because Carla's had this strange about face where before she was baying for Stephen's blood and now she's apologising for jumping the gun. And Roy's like, well, I've got no reason to doubt Stephen at the moment. And then we get the flash forward to Swain asking Sarah why she didn't tell anyone what she knew. And this is what Sarah knows about Stephen being a bit of a forger and also getting the equity release on Audrey's house, isn't it? I suppose. So it feels like, that the suspects are going to be lining up for, did these people know about Stephen? That's maybe it's obvious, but Michael and Sarah and Carla, maybe not Carla so much, but certainly Jenny, will probably all be accused of being in on it with Stephen, and they're going to have to prove their innocence. There's
two things going on. There's the crime that was committed by Peter by running Stephen over. And it's really interesting because in normal soap world, nobody would mention the fact that Peter ran him over on Monday. It would never come up again and he'd never get in trouble. But I really don't think that's where this is going.
No, of course not.
And the second thing is the money that got stolen. I think that Sarah, Carla and Michael are actually being interviewed about the money, not about Stephen's death or Peter's involvement.
Yeah.
So if they can prove, I guess that they need to prove that they couldn't have known that he was stealing and they genuinely were victims of a crime rather than accomplices. Because if they can't prove that, then they're not going to get. There's no way that Underworld's going to get the money back.
I suppose a bit of a problem that I would have with that is that we know as viewers that they didn't have anything to do with it, and we've also seen wrongful arrests, wrongful imprisonments, time and time again, and there's only so much drama you can get in. Like, is Sarah going to get sent to prison? Maybe, but she'll get out again. She'll be fine. It's not. I'm not particularly interested in that bit, but I'm more interested in Peter now. But anyway, Tim.
Yeah, I don't care about the fraud.
He's got his
really boring.
He's got his hook on a stick, and he's poking around and prodding away and down underwater, and then he manages to lever open this roof box. And we didn't see this the first time round, and I could imagine that a lot of people missed this, but if you watch it again and look really carefully, you do get to see for a split second a skeletal hand.
Yes.
It's like Halloween come early. And they did a lot better with Teddy's hand than they did with Leo's hand. They didn't just reuse the hands, which was probably quite a temptation for the prop department. It's like, why do we need to make a skeletal hand? We've already got a perfectly good zombie hand here.
I've just had a really sad thought.
What?
They could have a display case in the Coronation Street
Oh yeah,
experience
exists.
of father and son's dead hands.
They could. But then what would they have them do? Like high-fiving or just holding hands or shaking hands?
No, I'd have...
Or playing rock, paper, scissors?
No, I'd have them in situ. I'd have Leo's on a little kind of bed of dirt, but I'd have Teddy's in one of those, you know, the sort of things you get like jellyfish in an aquarium. Those little cylindrical water with like bubbles going through it. I'd have him bobbing about in that.
Yeah.
With his little skeletal hand.
I would like to see one day, I'd like to see in the flesh, as it were, Teddy and Leo's hand. That's going to be my next thing when we go to the prop department. I want a high five with Leo and Teddy.
Yes. Oh my god.
That's a photo
Coronation Street.
there.
Anyone listening from Coronation Street, the experience, please, you could sell £5 for a photo of people high-fiving with those. That would be so awesome. Oh.
Anyway, Tim doesn't find it awesome or hilarious or anything.
Tim doesn't have a sense of humour.
He's just like, bloody hell, there's a skeleton hand there. I'm going to run into the taxi and get on the blower to the police. But oh no, there's no reception over
by... He drops his wallet on the way.
He does drop his wallet on the way. I didn't notice that because I was busy tapping away on the laptop. But you said he's dropped his wallet. He's going to be find out that he's there. So yeah, even though I don't know why he doesn't have any reception there, because a couple of weeks ago he got a phone call when he was at the canal.
Don't use logic.
But anyway, he can't get in touch. Oh, does he? Yes, he does. He does get there in the end because Craig reports to Swain later. We've had a report. But first great jump scare of the episode was then Stephen getting into the car and he's like, "Fancy seeing you here."
Yes,
Brilliant.
I loved it.
Yeah, going into this week, there was very, very little that I knew that was going to happen. I had seen a picture of... it was a brief glimpse, so I didn't get to study it properly, of Tim flying through the air as if he'd been hit.
Really?
Going into Monday, I knew that Stephen was going to be knocked out Todd was going to be Tim was going to be knocked out by Stephen. Sadly, I knew that. I also knew that there was going to be a scene with Stephen and Audrey, and he was going to be confessing something to her.
Really?
Yeah. But I didn't know anything.
We didn't get that, really.
Well, that was what we got on Wednesday with him saying about the money. Not about the murders, but about the money. So I didn't know anything else. So when Stephen got into the car, I was quite excited for what happens next. And he's still playing it cool at the moment. And he knows that Tim is absolutely bricking it. And he says, "Oh, just give me a lift. Drive me around somewhere." So Tim drives him around. And then just pause for a second. Why Coronation Street? Did you feel the need to do that on the volume wall? Did they literally hire this, however much it was, £100,000 volume wall just to show people driving round? What did you think of that?
They must have done, and it obviously is important. It was important to them because it was Peter that was driving, and he became a really significant character, but only in hindsight. But honestly, why spend all that money? I don't understand. Was it cheaper than insuring people? Was it just too complicated? Is it a massive pain in the arse to do driving scenes? It must be, but it can't be so bad that you have to hire this
really quite expensive.
But then again, they don't
equipment.
have anything else, do they? But then again, surely there are loads of other places which just have this setup, because it's not uncommon for people to want to film. I've always hated in anything though fake driving scenes, because they really feel so obvious.
Look so obviously fake. And this, I think it was like Volume Wall's new piece of technology, isn't it? Usually what they would do is just have a normal screen with something projected onto it. And I got exactly the same feeling as I did when we saw the Kelly scenes in the Volume Wall. It just didn't feel real. It felt too fake. Or maybe it felt too real for Coronation Street. Whatever it is, looking outside the car window as Tim was driving Stephen around, it just totally took me out of it, and I was like, that's a screen they're driving past. This is looking too filmic for me. It didn't fit in, and I was thinking, why couldn't they just drive round, have them towed around on the back of a lorry like they normally do? Coronation Street will usually do that. It's very rare that if they want a driving scene, they'll have it projected on have a normal screen behind it. No, but I'm saying that this was the first time they've done a driving screen with a volume wall. They don't even usually have a normal screen. They usually have them driving for real. They're towed on the back of something, and actually that looks very, very real because it is the actual outside. I just did not get on with that being a volume wall. Please, Coronation Street, don't do that again. And it's not like they even did anything that exciting with it. At least last year, they were able to use it to show Kelly and Ardy and that on the top of a roof, which they wouldn't have been able to do in real life. We did a whole episode on our Patreon. What are some amazing creative and imaginative uses that they could come up with for using the volume wall? And they said, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to do them having a driving scene.
Yeah, right. That is a Patreon episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not. We haven't made it available.
No.
We need to make it available so that everyone on Coronation Street can listen to it, because so
just
far
to give them a few
you
hints.
guys have not used this technology to the best of its ability. Right. Secondly, how is it possible that Coronation Street, using really expensive technology, makes this look less convincing than carpool karaoke? Which also does not drive properly. They sit on the back of a van and get towed about. This is, what's his face? James Corden.
The guy that everybody hates.
Everyone hates James Corden, but he can do a more convincing driving scene than Peter Barlow in Coronation
That's just made
Street.
me think, I need Moira to say to... do you remember that bit, the Moira scene at Pat's party when she says to Tracy, you're the one that everybody hates? We need to make an edit of her saying that to James Corden.
I hope that he doesn't listen. Sorry, James, I don't know you that well at all. And the final thing I want to say is that the volume wall is obviously a really amazing piece of kit. It's been used in loads of. It was used in the Robert Pattinson and Batman film.
Oh, it gets used for everything.
But it doesn't work for Coronation Street.
No, it works for films when everything is looking filmic.
Yeah.
But when you suddenly get away from the standard shooting of Coronation Street, and even compare the filmic quality or the I don't know the technical language for it. I'm not very good at that sort of stuff. If you compare what an episode 20 years ago looks like to what it looks like now, it is definitely more polished, and maybe that's just the jump to HD. But having these effects and Coronation Street over the past, I'm going to say maybe even just 2 or 3 years, have really, really ramped up the effects. They need to slow down on that because it's so jarring. And this scene driving around, I was just completely taken out of it.
The final thing I wanted to say was that when I realised that Peter was using the volume wall. I mean, is it the volume wall? I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
Right, okay.
I've read it somewhere.
Okay.
Well, if Corrie's social media is to be believed, it is the volume wall.
Right. So on Wednesday I just thought, well, this is just a silly. Obviously, it's easier for them to do it this way for some reason. Then on Friday, when Peter was still driving around with this bloody background of like millions of pounds of really expensive technology, I thought, are they going to do a car chase? Stephen's going to get in the car at some point, and then obviously we get the scene later on when David gets his car. I was like, we haven't got a lot of time for this, but I guess it makes. But where are they going to? I don't understand. But obviously they've got this technology, and they've got Peter Barlow driving around with it because they're going to use it for something really exciting. But they didn't.
But they also did clearly film some scenes out and about in the Salford area, didn't they? Because there were roads that we recognised.
There was quite a few. This was also confusing because at some points he was driving in different parts, and we don't really know Manchester very well or Salford, but like the background against the volume wall was like that. That wasn't where he just was a minute ago. That's a completely different place.
I didn't mind that bit too much.
Wow.
Anyway, so this car ride is quite exciting, and yes, they did have a bit of action here that maybe the volume wall made it. I'm trying to justify the music of it. I really, really can't. Anyway, Sally's ringing Tim, and Stephen comments on, oh, that's quite an unusual ringtone you got there. And Tim's like, no, everybody's got that. I'm sick of hearing it, because obviously he doesn't want Stephen to put 2 and 2 together, which he already has. It was him that was spying on him at the canal a couple of weeks ago. And then he says, Stephen's like, oh, what were you doing around here at the canal? And Tim makes out that it was just because of Brian's dredging thing. And I loved the bit. I absolutely loved the bit where Stephen starts taking off his tie and he's like, oh, this is so constrictive. I just want to get this noose off from around my neck. And I was like, oh, he's gonna strangle Tim. I did not think that Tim was going to be a goner this week, but I was up for any kind of punishment they wanted to throw at him. And when Stephen started taking off his tie, I was like, brilliant. And that's the perfect weapon for him, isn't it? Like, he's got, hole punch was the ultimate Stephen Reid murder weapon. But as a tie, I never even thought of that. But of course, that's going to be good for him.
So just to sort of say, add on to that, when I'm sure that there will be many opportunities, I don't know how many he want to take, for Todd Boyce to appear on television or in fan events as Stephen Reid. And we always had
Richard Hillman, Brian Capron
turn up with his black gloves. I just want to know, are they going to give Todd Boyce a hole punch, or is he going to go and buy one? Because I really think he should buy his own prop hole punch and menace people.
I want to see him carrying an indoor swimming pool around, actually, because that was my favourite of his murders.
Maybe he'll just give everyone LSD.
That's just not so practical.
What do you think?
Anyway, Stephen starts taking his tie off, and it looks like he's going to strangle Tim, and even more so when he realises that Tim's en route to the police station. I can't remember what
he says. We're on the way to the police.
Oh yeah, the police station. Before he says that, he'd also, I can't remember what the line was, but so Calcutta Street gets a shout out in this scene, doesn't it? Which is the road where Pat Phelan and Vinny were building their dodgy flats while they were pretending to build.
Nice
but that was a really nice reference to a previous serial killer on Coronation Street.
Yeah.
That was total blink and you miss it moment. Well, blink with your ears anyway.
Blink your ear rolls. So what happens?
He strangles Tim, kind of. And he's a bit of a struggle, and one might say, well, this is why they had to do it on the volume wall. They couldn't have had them driving around; it would have been so unsafe, or having them being towed around. And I think they could have done it. They could have done it with practical effects. I don't know how these things work, but surely they could have done.
Well, what's your problem though? Because it didn't look good, or
that it didn't look good. Okay. It just I
didn't notice it particularly in that moment because I was too busy being excited that he was.
It was the same with the volume wall last year. All of the scenes on the roof to me were like, they're not really there. Yeah. I've been told about this volume wall. I'm looking out for it now. It just feels a bit uncanny valley sort of thing.
It was only when Peter was driving that it really got to me.
Oh, okay. No, these scenes were as well. But anyway, that was fantastic. I loved that. And then Tim kind of, and then Tim swerves and he flattens his seat back, doesn't he, to try and trap Stephen. That was clever. A hit. Gemma praises Tim.
Listen, I don't want anyone to think that I would lie about somebody or represent them.
Well, it's very useful advice for if you ever find yourself strangled by somebody sitting behind you while you're driving.
Yeah, use your...
The thing is,
he's a taxi driver. He probably has thought to himself. I can just imagine the scenes of Steve and Tim and maybe Eileen all sitting around talking nonsense about how they would defeat a would-be attacker in their taxi.
Yeah, I bet that's been a topic of conversation on a slow day.
Yeah,
I'd
karate chop them and I'd use the, so it kind of makes sense that
unfortunately, it's not something that we could do because we don't have a little electronic one, do we? We'd be frantically twiddling the knob down the side of the seat. Hang on a minute.
What are you doing?
Anyway, Stephen gets trapped and he relinquishes Tim, who goes rushing off.
Mistake.
And thank you to the guys at Corrie who helped us find the location of this confrontation between Steve and Tim. It is on our Corrie locations map if you want to go and visit it yourself. It's just a road. But anyway,
why don't you recreate the scene?
He gets to this bit with a dead end, and this was all set up by Coronation Street because there's like some fake walls that have been put in. There's a load of buddleia bushes down the side of the road, but for this scene, Corrie put up some like fake walls and some metal fences with barbed wire on top.
Do you know what I mean?
And Tim's
it's exactly the sort of alleyway you'd run into if you're being chased by a zombie horde.
It is. Tim can't get over the wire, and then he stops to tie up his shoes. Rookie mistake, Tim. In the synopsis for the episode, it says, I think it said Tim tripped over his shoelaces, but he didn't anyway. So,
maybe he read the synopsis and thought, that's not going to happen to me. I'll do my shoelaces up. Yeah, you're not going to catch me that way.
Maybe good point. So anyway, he bends down to do those, and you could it was so obvious for it when it was coming, but it was the great moment when it happened. He stands up and then he gets whacked over the head with a pipe by Stephen.
Yes.
And But he's not dead. He's kind of dying there.
See,
I think that
okay.
must have been an advert break.
On Monday, when this happened, was when I had to give up the dream because I knew Tim's being attacked far too early in the week for him to be dead. Same as Sarah, when she got knocked over, I was like, no, nothing conclusive has happened. Serial killers, when they kill on Corrie, is always immediate death. If there's any ambiguity about whether the person's alive or dead, they're not dead.
Yeah, that I did find that. The fact that why didn't he just finish him off? He could have done because he still had the pipe, and rather than going bang 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 and then throwing the pipe over the fence, he just chucked it, didn't he? What a mistake.
Yeah, why does he tie his hands behind his back? He could have just murdered him then.
But yeah, I agree with you. The very moment that we saw that Tim wasn't immediately killed, he was safe. He had a free pass to the end of the week.
Well, he's definitely going to make it to Monday, I think.
Oh yeah, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. He'll just be moaning about having to pee on his own leg. Like he hasn't done that before.
Anyway, so Tim's having a bit of a groan on the ground. And Stephen takes his tie off, ties his hands behind his back, and then chucks the pipe away.
No. Don't do it.
Is that going to be found? I suppose it doesn't really need to be found.
Okay, this is my point
about... Tim's like, it was Stephen, and everyone's saying, yeah, we believe you.
This is the trouble about the flash forwards kind of spoiling the story a little bit, because it's always really there's no closure when a serial killer dies before trial or confesses, because you don't find any of this stuff out. They just go, well, it was him who did this, that and the other thing, and he's confessed now, so there's no investigation. Nobody cares.
I wonder, and I've not given this any thought at the moment, and I may not have any ideas unless I have a brainwave, would anything else have worked better as a flash forward that wouldn't have spoiled it a little bit?
The only way they could have done it without spoiling that their character didn't die would be to have other characters alluding to the uncertain fate of all of the major suspects.
If Stephen had killed somebody else, and the flash forwards had been saying, you didn't tell anybody, Sarah, and now someone is dead. And I know it was Stephen, but if there'd been someone else...
Yeah, that would have been better, wouldn't it?
And so we went into the week knowing that there was going to be another victim.
Definitely dying.
But because there wasn't any other victim, they couldn't have done that.
No, they could have done it that way.
Yeah, but they could have if there was going to be another victim.
But it would have worked either way.
No, because I think one thing that was for sure at the beginning of this week, and I will still say, I did not know for 100% certain that tonight was going to be his final episode. Yeah. I didn't. It could very well have been that he escaped, he went to Thailand, came back for Christmas or something. Clearly the story was reaching some kind of climax, and I was fairly certain this week was going to be his final week, but I didn't know it. I've forgotten the point that I was making there now, but
something to do with that you couldn't have Sarah saying someone's dead.
I
don't agree.
But I think that what if they'd had a flash forward to Stephen being dead at the beginning of the week, and the question had been how he got there.
Boo.
How do you feel? So we'll get back to the synopsis in a minute. I think I probably know the answer to this one, but I'll check. How do you feel about the fact that he was killed off rather than allowed to escape or rot in jail?
Bad.
Do you want to elaborate?
Well, they needed him to die because they wanted to have the Peter...
Yeah.
And I don't even know if this is actually where it's going. It just feels like that.
I know you've really got you're fixed on
I've just decided that's what's happening because it just seems really obvious. If it's not how this is going, then I'm going to be super mad because everything points to that. And all of the kind of downsides of this week are because of that idea that I've had. So if it's not because of that, it's just because they flubbed it. So I don't agree with killing all the villains off because if you look at someone like Tracy... I don't know what everybody thinks about Tracy. Some people hate her. Some people think she's great. Some people will never forgive her for what she did to Charlie. But they didn't kill her off. She wasn't a supervillain, but she still killed somebody, and she didn't die. Now, think of all the years of drama that we've had out of her. Even when she was a criminal in prison, there was still that added drama and the court case and everything. You don't have any of that if you kill off the killer. And then you have to... The other thing about it is that if you want another storyline about a killer or a serial killer or whatever, you got to build another character into it. You've got to start a new story about a new person who turns from, into an evil villain, or is created as an evil villain. And there's always so much pushback about it. At least if you had a serial killer that didn't die at the end of the story, you can always bring them back whenever you want to kill somebody off.
That's the thing. Coronation Street's now had, 4 serial killers?
It doesn't
Richard,
really make
Pat,
sense.
John and Stephen. And the fact that all 4 of them have ended their stories in a body bag.
And it starts to become predictable.
It's predictable. The biggest twist tonight would have been if he had escaped, because nobody would have expected that. And if he'd have jetted off to Thailand, then he would have always been a potential of, is he going to come back?
Yes.
And now...
That's way more exciting.
That's more exciting, having the possibility of a surprise return. And even if they just had him arrested... There's never been a serial killer on trial storyline on Coronation Street, has there? Because they always just get killed off at the end.
And that would have fed into the true crime obsession that, culture... I mean, we've always been obsessed with true crime in America and, all English-speaking countries. I don't want to speak for other places, but true crime's always been... something that we're fascinated with, and also uses, I don't know why I'm talking about this, technology in new ways to spread the word. So imagine how exciting it would have been to have had all the accoutrements of a true crime story appear in the world of Weatherfield. Would we have had, the guy that wrote the book for John Stape cropping up?
Oh, yeah.
Would you have had a podcast about it? Would you, you could have had the Weatherfield reporter digging up
they may well still come on the scene next week to try and interview people.
I thought you meant there may still be next week a serial killer new one.
Yeah, not quite.
Why not?
I just think that it's a shame that he were killed off, and the biggest twist would be if he hadn't been. But maybe we try it again with the next one.
My theory is there's a very specific reason in this particular case.
Sure.
But for example, Pat Phelan didn't have to have been killed. In my opinion, could have been captured. I like the way that Richard Hillman... See, this is the thing.
Richard Hillman has still got, by a huge country mile, the best exit for a serial killer.
Yes, it was... Coronation Street set the bar so high with that. Now, I know that everybody probably remembers that I was slightly disappointed in how Pat Phelan's exit took place. And I also am going to say the same thing about Stephen. Is it just because I'm comparing it to Richard Hillman?
Yeah.
Because that, and all, my major complaint here is that it was an anticlimactic death, but there's not very many ways you can kill somebody on Corrie without massive stunts that cost a lot of money. And they obviously spent it all on the volume wall.
Maybe they did.
Why couldn't they have had a volume wall?
Or the helicopter on Emmerdale if it's a pooled budget.
Oh, God. Don't give them any more money.
Right. So anyway, back to the synopsis. We're still on Monday's episode.
I thought this would be quick.
Somehow. No. Even though there's one story, this is a long one. So, Carla, meanwhile, has gone round to see Jenny. And she's I need to talk to you about Stephen. And Jenny's like, no, don't want to hear it. We come back to them later. Stephen, meanwhile, is opening up his car boot, and very handy for him, there's a petrol can in there. Tim wakes up. Stephen puts his
sense that a taxi driver would
I suppose it would, yeah. Stephen puts his hand over his mouth, and Tim and starts to smother him, doesn't he? And he puts his hand over his nose. And I thought that this could have been a brilliant fake out moment if they were going to kill Tim. Like, as soon as he landed there on the floor, and Stephen saw that he wasn't dead, I was like, yeah, he's going to be fine. But then when he actually started to smother him, I did get just a little moment of, oh, maybe this is it. Because he clearly wants to kill this guy at the moment. He's got him, there, vulnerable. Helpless and vulnerable on the floor. This is going to be Tim's death. But he still fudged that, didn't he?
Well, he gets distracted. Because the birdie song starts.
Yeah, the birdie song starts playing on Stephen's phone again. And
on Tim's phone.
On Tim's phone again, sorry, and then Stephen gets mad and stamps on it.
So he stops killing
Tim.
Because of the birdie song. So, again, another reason for everyone to acknowledge that what a pathetic character Tim is. He was saved by the birdie song.
But then he doesn't carry on killing him.
No,
he just bundles him into the boot, doesn't he?
And I just want to say something else. We, if you go on Twitter, you probably will have seen it being advertised that Joe Datine is going to Canada.
Yes, finally we can talk about that. To do,
we haven't mentioned this on the show because it could have been related to the exit of his character, and it maybe still is, but I thought I'd bring it up now because I don't think he's going to die next week. I think he's survived.
He is absolutely fine.
But that was one of the things that was making me not sure, even though I'm like 80% sure they wouldn't have killed Tim off.
He's going to Canada to do another.
Joe Datine is going to go to Canada for a fan meet,
like he did with Sally Carman.
Everybody go and tell him that Tim is the... No, don't do that. He's one. Like, you guys know it's just a joke at this point, right?
Yeah.
Even though Tim is the worst.
Elaine's talking to Sally meanwhile about the football. And the ticket and everything, and Sally's fuming because she realises, well, maybe Tim has gone there, and this is where she's like, if he's chosen football over me, he's a dead man. So they sow the seeds, and I think it was fairly well done of the reason why Sally wasn't frantic about his whereabouts on the end of Monday, because she had a perfectly good reason to think that he was somewhere else.
But I've never heard somebody sound like such a overblown nag about her husband possibly being murdered. It did seem like she was making an unreasonable complaint about the lack of parking at the local council offices. The way that she was talking about it, she kept bringing it up, and I was like, "Shut up, Sally, don't care about it." You know what I mean? Like, why wasn't she more worried?
Well, she just wanted somebody else to find him as well. She spent most of, was it Wednesday's episode, sitting in the cafe, cupping a cup of coffee, just going, well, I hope somebody's finding him, because I'm just sitting here.
I liked it when Roy gave her the bit of paper, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so Carla knows... What have I written here?
Carla's gone to see Jenny, and she tells her, right. Carla's I know Jenny. You're going to Thailand.
Yeah, and Jenny says, well, yeah, Stephen wanted to keep it quiet so we could tie up loose ends here, and Carla's like, what a load of rubbish. That's ridiculous, Jenny. Jenny starts to be convinced by Carla that there's something afoot here, and maybe Stephen isn't quite so innocent as she once believed.
Carla's got their little knife prizing the oyster open. Yeah. She's getting, see if there's a little pearl in there.
Yeah. Sarah's also trying to convince Michael at the moment of how suspicious Stephen's being. Carla says, look, Jenny, don't tell Stephen.
No, hang on. Sarah's telling Michael that she's suspicious that Carla's saying she doesn't mind about Stephen. Last week she was going on about LSD. This week she's going on about, oh, it's fine. Is this going to become part of the evidence that gets used? Is it going to, are they going to try and cook up some kind of story whereby Carla and Peter both colluded together to bump Stephen off? Is that going to be the approach that the police take? Yeah. Because that would be a piece of evidence
it feels
that they
like
would use.
With all these different characters, it's almost kind of like a whodunit, except it's not a whodunit. It's a who helps him do really it, but it wasn't anybody.
No, but also I like this. Okay, I'm making a story up out of nothing here. I don't know if this is where it's going, but if it is going this way, it is really interesting because we don't really know, and I don't know if we're ever going to find out. Does Peter believe what he did was right or not?
I think we're going to get plenty of opportunity to find out.
Well, if that's what the story's about.
So Carla's saying to Stephen, Carla's saying to Jenny, don't tell Stephen that I've come round. Don't tell him that you suspect. I don't want you to be in danger here. Do you want to risk it? If you think there's one grain of truth in what I'm saying, you got to keep this quiet. And Jenny sends her away, but is starting to look a little bit worried. Meanwhile, Sally's on the phone to Abby, who tells her that Kevin's at the game with someone. Sally's like, I can't believe it. He must have gone
Abby
with Tim after all.
Abby doesn't know who it is.
No. Elaine is very disappointed in her and says, look, Elaine's very disappointed in Tim and says, me and you should go out and have a good time, Sally. Over at the station, Craig tells Swain about the mysterious body that has been reportedly found in the canal, according to an anonymous phone call they got earlier.
From a man?
Craig... and I'm not going to say I was too disappointed in this, didn't have a whole lot to do this week, did he?
No.
In fact, I don't even know whether he featured on Monday. Was it on Wednesday and Friday's episode? Was he just resting somewhere, fanning himself and clutching his pearls at finding a dead body in the roof
on
box?
Wednesday and Friday.
On Wednesday and Friday, he was just like, "Oh my gosh, what a horrible experience! I need to take a whole week off work because I've seen a dead body."
I mean, in real life, can I just say, obviously, it would be incredibly horrific, and you might get PTSD. But he's a soap cop.
Yeah, he should be fine. Probably see dead bodies all the time if you're a soap cop. So Stephen arrives in the woods. I'm gonna say it was the same woods as Gary bopped Rick Nealon on the head with a rock, but I suppose one wood does look pretty similar to another.
It's the Greg Woods.
It is the Greg Woods, yeah. So Tim's in the boot, and Stephen takes out the petrol canister, starts sloshing it about, and then this was another moment where I was like saying, "Oh, is he actually going to do it?" That I do have complaints about this week's episode, obviously, but one thing that they did do really well was repeatedly make me think, oh, maybe they're going to do this, maybe they're going to do that. I was definitely on my toes and excited throughout a lot of the week at saying, I can't wait to find out what happens next, and is it going to be this? And for a moment I thought maybe he is going to set the car on fire, but then a very distracting helicopter flies over the top and he goes and hides behind a tree because helicopters can't see around trees.
No, it's off to Emmerdale.
Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe it was.
Flying over, like, don't worry, we're not here for you. We're going to Emmerdale.
And then this is the last that we get to see of the taxi in the woods for a long time. After the break, and Stephen has returned to the street, and we're like, oh, what's happened? This was very much like Gary killing Rick, because I think we saw the struggle, didn't we? And then we cut to Gary arriving back in the flat. And we're like, ooh, what's he done with him? So at this moment, we don't know whether or not Stephen, having hidden from the helicopter, has then returned to the car and set it on fire. Again, I assumed not. By the time Monday's episode ended, I was in no doubt that Tim would be skipping around the street like normal the next day. But it was quite a nice bit of intrigue for a while. He sees Sally and Elaine, who go, "Oh, Stephen, it looks like you've got blood on your collar." And he's like, "I just cut myself shaving. I'm fine. Leave me alone."
Bugger off.
Yeah, bugger off, basically.
Bugger off, you pair of old biddies.
So,
nosy old cows.
Over at the bistro later, it's Ken's birthday. Happy birthday, Ken. 84.
This was a strange...
This was an odd side story.
This was a side quest no one asked for.
Yeah.
It was fairly charming, but I didn't really care.
No.
I would have preferred this to have happened in a different week, but we all know you can't move soap characters' birthdays just for the convenience of the plot.
Exactly. And Ken's being given various items of train set from everybody, and he's like, what on earth is this?
Why do I want this?
He's got a carriage, he's got a bunch of tracks from Mary, was it? I mean, we can tie up this story fairly quickly now by saying, was it somebody saw him with a train magazine which was accidentally delivered to number one, and then they thought, oh, Ken must really like trains, let's get him a load of train related presents,
and then Roy offers to buy it off of him.
Yeah,
and we all had a hearty chuckle. It was fine.
It was alright.
It was fine. It was just really... It was weird because this was the only side story the whole week and it had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it was peculiar. I don't know whether I really believe that everyone would make the assumption that he's into trains just because he sees him with a train magazine when he's gone the whole life showing no interest in that.
Yeah, but after, Michael, I struggled to buy gifts for you. I mean, I did buy 40 for you this year.
Thank you very much.
After 84 years, I guess you get desperate enough to believe anything's possible to try to get you out of
Men
this
are
dilemma.
notoriously difficult to buy presents for.
And also, old men are very famously into trains. Yeah. Oh, we won't dwell on it because we've got other things to get to.
Roy gets Peter to one side in the bistro and says, look, Sarah says that Carla's been drugged. So Peter says that to Roy, and Roy realises that Peter thinks that it's Stephen is the one that's been doing the drugging. So yeah, maybe this comes into it later when, like we said earlier, Roy is possibly going to give evidence against Stephen. Anyway,
Peter.
Yes, thank you for correcting me when I say the wrong name.
I am just going to keep... I know
it's not an infrequent
people,
occurrence.
But I want everyone to know...
I do get the wrong name quite a lot.
What we're talking about, because it's confusing.
So, Stephen's gone to Rita's house. He's had a shower, and now he's telling Jenny about this tough business meeting he's had. And she doesn't tell him about Carla coming round, which is kind of making us think, oh yeah, she's definitely starting to believe the possibility that Carla's story might actually be true.
Well, she kind of tells Carla to do one, doesn't she? But it's obviously stuck in her mind.
Yeah, playing on her mind, definitely. And she says, look, I think we should tell Carla that we're leaving for Thailand. It seems a bit odd that we haven't. Have you two had a falling out or something? And he's like, I just don't want to make her fret. I'll tell her tomorrow if it makes you feel better. Anyway, why don't we go and fly out to Thailand tomorrow night? Let's get out of here. He's obviously, now he's got Tim in a boot, and the body has been... No, does he know the body's been found? Yes, he does. He knows that Tim's found Teddy, hasn't he? And obviously Leo's been found, so he can't afford to wait till the 23rd of October, which is when his original tickets were. So he then tries to convince Jenny, we need to get away right now. He says, I'm fed up of all the grief, and Jenny's like, hang on, this is a big thing. I was going to suggest putting it off a month. Sorry. She needs more time to decide whether what Carla has said is actually true. So... she's like, I can't go now. And he says, okay. I just can't wait for us to start a new life together. And he offers to go and make her a cup of tea and goes and fills the kettle. And at this moment, we're like, oh, is he going to bump off Jenny or something with his cup of tea? And he has a little cry, doesn't he?
Because he knows he's got to go without her.
Yeah, I think this was a bit of humanity for Stephen showing.
Because he tells her later in the week that he genuinely loves her.
Yeah, and I believe that.
I mean, I think he thinks that's true.
He's had a really rough time. I did feel sorry for him, and it's not just because I enjoyed the character. When he was saying, back in Milan, everybody hated me. I was a loser. I came to Weatherfield, and I tried to rebuild my life here and have people respect me. But really, he has had a really tough 12 months.
Has he? Well,
yeah.
He's had a bad time in Weatherfield.
Through all of that, he found the lovely Jenny, who he has been kind of pining after for the best part of a year, hasn't he? And now he's with her. He realising at this moment that he's got to go without her.
He doesn't have any
that
suspicion.
Tear, I did. He doesn't at the moment, but that tear there, I did appreciate that. That he squeezed that one out. So anyway, he says to Jenny, "Look, go and have a bath." So she heads off, and he gets on the phone. So to the airport, because it's very easy to do this on the phone. They'll pick up straight away if you want to do it. Can I change my tickets to tomorrow, please? And just one passenger. Unfortunately, Jennifer Connor won't be able to go with me or accompany me or something. I can't remember what I said, but I wrote down something in the notes here that don't make sense. So yeah, at that point I was thinking again, is he going to bump off Jenny? There were a few times during the week where I thought, I think it wouldn't really, would they? But it did make me go, ooh, which is what this week needed. I was really, really excited throughout the week. I couldn't wait for each episode to air. There was an awful lot of carrots that were dangled in front of me for this week, and for the most part they worked very, very well at getting me to want to tune in. Hence why they didn't need to put spoilers on social media. We'll come back to that later.
Carrots don't work on me because I can get a carrot out of the fridge.
Anyway, final scene of the episode. Cops at the canal, they're swarming the place. It's night time. Craig goes over to the roof box because he's now lead of this murder investigation, and he looks inside the roof box. He heaves, doesn't he? It looks like he looks like he's gonna throw up. Walks off. Swain, the iron stomached Swain, goes over, looks inside. We got a body.
Yeah, she's the coolest.
So ends Monday's episode of Coronation Street. Very good tease from Wednesday. And now we get to pass on to you.
Thanks.
What happened on Wednesday, Gemma?
So we have a flash forward again at the beginning, and we get Michael's written down what they actually said.
I did this time.
Michael says, I had nothing to do with this. And Sarah says, you don't know what you're capable of until, anyone can just lose it. Anyone can.
That's line. That's
supposed to make you think, oh, did she kill Stephen? Yeah. I think she's talking about Peter here, and maybe she's wondering if Peter killed him on purpose. Don't know. Or is she talking about Stephen hitting her?
Do you think Because we maybe had different opinions on this, but when they caught up to these flash forwards on Friday's episode, I thought, well, this is just happening on the night of the events of Friday's episode and we're not going to come back to this. But do you think that we're going to see more of these interviews next week?
Well, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about that now?
Well, we can do, as we're on the subject.
Well, I didn't really... until you said that, I had imagined that next week we would get these interviews fleshed out. But your suggestion...
The unabridged version.
That we were just going to only see these very brief glimpses on the Friday night. Very intriguing. I mean, I don't know that we really need to see the entire thing.
See, one of the things that I don't really enjoy after the big climax of a story like this is that there are often long, protracted interview scenes that aren't actually that exciting. So
we
if they
know
do
everything they're going to say.
Exactly. So if they are just bundling them all together at the end of the night's episode and then we get to not have to see them next week, then I'd probably prefer that.
Yeah, I think that would be more powerful. Carla says, I was just trying to protect Jenny. I ended up doing the opposite, didn't I? So
she's there talking about the fact that
she warned her
and yeah.
Okay, then we find that Rita's found Jenny sleeping on the sofa because and she heads out, and then Jenny is found by Stephen, and she tells him that she just fell asleep because she didn't want to disturb him. But obviously she doesn't want to be in the same room as him because she realises that he is a thief, as Carla suggested.
I kept forgetting as the week went on what exactly she thought. So when it was revealed on Friday to Jenny that he was a murderer, I'd kind of forgotten that she didn't know that.
Well, what does Carla tell her? That he's poisoned, he's drugged her and stolen money?
Yeah.
So she's concerned because Stephen's still going on about going to Thailand, and he suggests to her we should start a joint account. So
well, if that doesn't set alarm bells ringing, if you're already suspicious, then I don't know what will.
Immediately she knows that she's correct in her suspicions. Over number 6, Sally is still livid at Tim for making her spend the night with Elaine. She and Elaine hope he's got drunk and now he's suffering for it.
I can't believe they brought Elaine back without killing her, honestly.
I can't see the point of her now.
No. We were joking last week about her coming back saying, hello, I hear you're looking for a victim. And literally, she wasn't even in mild peril this week, was she? No. There was no chance of her being killed off.
I've coined a phrase this week that I told you about.
What?
It for characters in soaps or television shows that are in danger but clearly are never going to die.
What's that?
Immortal peril.
Oh, immortal peril.
Not immortal peril. Immortal peril, because you know that certain people. Not that I ever thought Elaine was invincible, but apparently she is. We see Roy talking on the phone to Nina, and he says that he was going to go to the canal, but the footpath is closed. What could that be? Gail's telling David and Shona that she. That Kevin and Tommy. Oh, I don't know what this means. David gets.
Gail's telling them about Tim being in trouble with Sally because of supposedly spending the evening last night with Kevin and Tommy Orpington, and David says, "Well, I'd probably do the same, to be honest." And
Shona gets annoyed. Yeah. Peter tells Carla that he's still worried about her sharing an office with Stephen, and that the police aren't even doing anything about it. And Carla says, "It's going to be okay. You just need to let this go for now." Meanwhile, we see Stephen. He's packing his stuff. He's got a picture of him and Jenny. Jenny comes into the lounge, and Stephen said, "Oh, I found a joint account in Thailand. We can transfer our savings into now. We need to do it right now because the offer ends today." And Jenny's like, I don't know. Anyone would think you're trying to steal my money. Ha ha ha. And Stephen kind of like, ha ha ha. And when he leaves, Jenny's like, oh no. Her heart's broken again. She just can't catch a break.
I loved how big a character Jenny was this week. She was, front and centre there, wasn't she? She's not had loads to do with Stephen over the past year because he's just been watching her from afar a long time. But I'm really glad that she was one of the leads characters in this week, and Sally Matthews, as would be expected,
Queen of the Cobbles,
absolute played a blinder in this. That scene where she was like holding back the tears and like trying to be brave and everything. Such a good job. So good.
Her and Todd Boyce really, were the king and queen of Corrie this week, weren't they? They were the major characters, and that certainly was fine with me because I like both of them. I think they're both really talented and enjoyed watching them. Sally tells Gail that she reckons that Tim's at Kevin sleeping off a hangover. But then Kevin's like comes down the tunnel like do. I had a great night. Shame Tim didn't turn up. Sally's like, what do you mean? What? I thought he went with you to the football, and he's like, no, I went. Where did you go with in the end?
Kirk.
Went with Kirk. Imagine how much he'd want to be Stephen's fourth victim if he had to spend the evening with Kirk talking absolute crap to Tommy Orpington. Like you'd be getting like, Tommy, he's not really my friend. I just want you to know.
Kevin's job on this episode, or maybe it was over the 2 episodes, I can't remember, is walking into shots and then revealing things. Because there was this, and then there was the other thing. It was today, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. It was Wednesday. Saying, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that roof box. Do you remember it? Do you remember, viewers, when he was heaving the roof box onto Audrey's car?"
Okay, so she's like, "Oh my goodness, where is he? He's missing." She runs off, and Stephen overhears a lot of this. Sally and Gail end up in the cafe with Elaine, and Gail's like, "Don't worry, he's probably just a dog lying for an excuse to have fun. You remember when he was a bigamist? He's got form." Nina says, out of interest, does Stephen like the canal? I mean, does Tim like walking along the canal? This is the weirdest thing, because like this is 2 people in 2 different conversations going, does Tim got an affinity to canals? Because we had Stephen asking Jenny that, and now we've got Nina asking Sally, because she's obviously realised that there's something going on. Because Roy told her that the canal footpath's been cordoned off. They wondered if it was a body. She hears Tim's missing, so she thought she might stir the pot and make Sally fear for her husband's life, because that's always really good fun. Stephen's having trouble with Underworld computers because he's trying to get into the bank accounts, but it won't let him because his code doesn't work. So we find out that Carla's blocked him later, don't we? Well, that would be the smart thing to do. So Michael's there, and he's like, hey Michael, I need to transfer some money because of a deal. Maybe I can use your I can't remember account. Whether he suggested that or whether Michael just offered. Well, then he says, I'll just check with Carla. Hi Carla, it's me, your favourite, your best friend, Stephen. What's that? You think I should get a raise and so should Michael? Yeah, I totally agree. Anyway, Michael wants to know if he can use, I can use his code. That's fine. That's a brilliant idea. Okay, great. Glad you agree. Bye-bye. Yeah, she's fine with it. Yeah, Michael is like... Oh, great, here you go then. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So he then has access to the Underworld accounts. £250,000. Cool £250,000. Transfer it all in one go. Still wouldn't really buy you... Poor security on that system, I'm going to say. I mean, it would just about buy you a decent house in some bits of the country these days. What about in Thailand? Oh, it could probably buy you quite a lot in Thailand. Exactly. He's like, I was gonna buy somewhere cool in Cheshire, but I guess I'll go to Thailand. Sally, Gail, and Elaine go to the canal, and Gail looked wistful a few times, and I was wondering if she was remembering power walking with Audrey and wishing that she could suggest it, because that would be the perfect thing. These 3 definitely look like the sort who would power walk up and down the canal looking for dead bodies. I thought I enjoyed this particular bit where Gail recognises the roof box. She knows things. Yeah. So they turn up at the canal where the cordon is, and the police officer there is like, oh, I'm not telling you nothing. And Sally says, oh, I'm worried about my husband. And he's like, I can't tell you nothing. Go to the police station and ask them. And then, like you say, Gail sees the roof box, and she's like, I know someone who had a roof box. When they turned up, I thought that Sally was going to be the one to find Tim's wallet, but they left that little bit till the end of the week, didn't they? I thought it was strange because they didn't know who the wallet belonged to, which made me think that Tim just didn't put anything in it. Yeah. Which is kind of a very Tim thing to do. Like, I guess I better carry the wallet around, or she's going to nag me. I don't like her present, but I don't actually want it. All right. Carla and Sarah go to the hotel for a meeting with the client, and this made me laugh so much. The woman that she's sitting next to, Carla's phone flashes up with a message that says, Underworld account, minus £247,000 by Michael Bailey, current balance 0. This woman looks at this and somehow thinks it's appropriate to comment and go, I see that you've been frauded by one of your employees. Is it Michael Bailey, the brother of James Bailey, the famous footballer?
She must be a big James Bailey fan. I don't know how many footballers' brothers the average person could name or recognise.
Yeah, but that to me wasn't the major, important, exciting thing to notice on someone's phone during a meeting. If I'm doing business with somebody and I look at their phone and they suddenly got zero balance from £250,000, I might suddenly ask questions about that. Not about whether she knows somebody who happens to be related to a guy that doesn't play football anymore. But that is just a minor niggle. So she brings it up. Carla realises that this has happened and she ends the meeting and rushes off.
I thought that Alison King did really well in that scene. The kind of the look of shock and panic.
Yeah.
I thought that she portrayed particularly well.
And also, can I give a shout out? I've always loved her long, flowy chiffon overcoat thing the green one that she was wearing this week. It was very nice. So the Golden Girls turn up at the station, bump into Swain, who cannot tell them anything except to say that they have found a body by the canal. And Sally's like, but is it Tim? Is it Tim? Shut up, no one cares. All week, all you care about is where Tim is. You should put a bloody dog collar on him with a tracking device.
I would hope that if I went mysteriously missing one day, you might start nagging people and asking where Michael was.
Plenty more fish in the sea. How do you work Tinder?
Fish in the canal.
So she says, look, when was the last time you saw your husband? And Sally's like, I saw him yesterday. And she said, well, listen, if you saw him yesterday, he is not the body that we found in the canal. Enough said, okay? Did he have a skeleton hand? Is he alive but with a skeleton hand? No? Fine then. You're in the clear. Carla and Sarah rush back to the factory. They see Michael and he's like, what do you mean? But Stephen phoned you, Carla, and he said it was fine. And she's like, no, he didn't. You feeble-minded idiot. She doesn't say that, but she should have done.
He's not an idiot.
I know.
I think many people would have been.
I know. But if I was Carla, I still would have been a bit more cross. Sarah looks sad, and she then admits that she knows that her uncle's always been a bit shady. Well, at least since he came back in the show last year. Carla's fuming. Out on the street, Audrey hears from Elaine and Sally that Tim's gone missing. And Stephen goes over because Elaine's there and he's like, oh, I need something from the flat. Something really important. Can I get it? And they're like, we can't. We don't have time for that. Tim's missing. He's like, oh, that sounds terrible. Anyway, not interested. Give me your goddamn key. And then Audrey gets a phone call from Sarah, who is starting to realise that covering for Uncle Stephen is not going to do her any good. And she decides to spill the beans to her about the fact that Stephen had stolen money from her equity in her house. Thing. Later on, we see Carla and Michael talking to a constable in the factory about the fraud and the fact that Stephen took all the money. And they're like, did he menace you or kind of intimidate you in any way? Michael's like, no, he just asked me and I told him. Oh, no.
You can see Carla just looking daggers at Michael because bye-bye insurance.
Honestly, this is like the worst thing. This is the worst thing in the world because there are so many people that are so evil and tricky and they know exactly how to do it. It's called social engineering, isn't it? Where they can trick you into doing all kinds of different things. And everybody thinks that they're too smart for this to happen to them.
And the sad thing is that if Michael had said, yeah, he intimidated me and threatened me for the number, and now Stephen's dead,
nobody would have known any the wiser. Yeah. I mean, he could still come back and go, I was just being manly. But actually he did. I didn't want everyone to know that he scared me.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might work. He should probably do that. But he's a Bailey. He's too noble to do that. The Platts are gathered in the flat, having heard everything from Sarah.
I know it's not the flat.
No, I didn't think it was.
Sorry, I just put it there to trick you. In the house.
At the Platt house. And they're all talking about what Stephen's got up to. And then they all start checking their bank accounts. I bet they haven't got anything.
Yeah, it starts to dawn on them that maybe Stephen is not to be trusted.
And then Sarah reveals that Carla was suspicious that Stephen dosed her up on LSD and killed Rufus. And then they start panicking because they don't know where Audrey is. And Sarah says, yeah, I told her about the house stuff, but nothing else. So who knows where she's gone, or whether Stephen's found her and she's confronted him. God knows what could be happening right now.
Were you at all concerned for Audrey's well-being this week? I think...
No.
Ever so slightly. I mean, they could have killed her off. But yeah, I still enjoyed being teased by it. Like I said, I think the fact that Corrie were saying maybe he's killed this person, maybe he's killed that person was kind of fun. It's just a shame that they didn't stick the landing because he didn't kill anyone. Yeah,
it would be like watching 4 weddings and a funeral and they'd never go to church. Okay, Stephen finishes packing up his stuff in the Red Bank flat. I don't know why he really needs to go back there for stuff, but he
didn't get anything of note, did he?
He didn't seem to.
Was it just he went there because that's where we know the trophy is? I don't know.
Well, okay, so this is another important point that is going to perhaps go into my theory about what happens with Peter.
Yeah.
Because he is confronted by Peter. And he also gets... Stephen picks up a trophy. I don't know what it's for, best Canadian accent. And he puts it down and like, I won't take that. I won't take that with me. So Peter comes in, he says, I know what Carla suspects about you and you're going to suffer for it.
At this point, I wasn't necessarily worried about Audrey, but at this point I thought, I think this could be it. I think maybe he's going to bump off Peter. Were you worried at all? Because they wanted us to think that he was going to, particularly as they had that trophy there. I was definitely concerned for Peter's safety for a little while there.
So Peter's phone starts ringing. He puts it down. Stephen realises...
Should have been the Birdie song, and Stephen's like, Tim was right. Everyone does have that over here. How have I never noticed that before?
So they start having an argument. Peter pushes him over the sofa. Stephen cuts his hand on the trophy, then he grabs it and he looks like he's about to bash Stephen in the head with it.
I was like, oh. Yeah, some people, I saw quite a few people asking online, and I think I even asked you, like, why was there blood on the trophy?
Yeah, he cuts his hand on it as he falls down.
Very sharp trophy.
I saw that as he went down.
Oh yeah, I missed it.
And so Audrey comes in right as he's about to stove his head in and says, are you threatening my son? Get out, Peter.
Yeah, this is all starting to piece together, isn't it? That Audrey is now going to say, I literally saw...
Okay, so everybody's having it... I've seen on Twitter, people are having a go at Audrey saying, and on Reddit and on our Facebook group, why is Audrey so stupid that she immediately jumps to, Peter's killed my innocent son? She's already seen him. He was literally about to stove his head in, wasn't he?
No, Stephen was going to stove Peter's head in.
Okay. But
Peter had pushed Stephen over the sofa and was looming over him intimidatingly.
She sees her son with blood all over him and they're having a fight.
Yeah.
And that she asks him directly, are you threatening my son? So she's talking to Peter. Yeah?
Yeah.
She sends Peter on his way and then she confronts Stephen.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind, everybody. She's already seen one scene of violence between these two characters where she thought that Peter was victimising Stephen, not the other way around. So Audrey says, I know about the equity thing. Can you please explain to me what it is? Which is what I would say. I don't know what it is really. What did you do? Can I do it? Sounds like a good idea. Anyway, Gail and Sarah are telling Jenny about what's happened and she can't believe this. One thing after the other since Johnny died, she says. Then she gets...
What a drama of it.
Oh, God, this place.
I can't remember whenabouts in the year was Coronation Street, because I don't think it was Halloween. I think it was pretty much this week 2 years ago, wasn't it? You'd have thought that she might have said, you know, is there something cursed about this week? But I suppose when you do that, you start noticing that at the end of May each week, also something mega dramatic happens. So maybe it's best that they don't
We've spoken before with people that work on the show about this, and they're like, yeah, you just can't acknowledge it because everyone would never shut up about every single thing that's happened to them. It just, you've got to suspend disbelief at a certain point.
I do wonder how long this annual tradition of something big at the end of May, something big in the middle of October is going to last. For a long time. It's been, especially the Britain's Got Talent. That's been going like over 10 years at this point.
Well, and it's also at Christmas and New Year's.
It's always something good to look forward to, but I'd rather that they... It means that certain stories have got to come to a point and you start to
It's artificial.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jenny then gets a phone call. She thought that was too much. She gets a phone call from the police who tell them that the body that they found is Teddy's. They join the dots and they realise that he must have been murdered as well. It's just too much. Over at Red Bank, Stephen is trying to defend himself.
I thought that Jenny's reaction to Teddy's body being found wasn't quite as big as it might have been.
This is my problem with this week, is that I felt like we could have had twice as many episodes to hash out all the
Wednesday's
things.
episode in particular did feel rushed to me, I'm going to say. Especially the Platts. They were darting back and forth. Where's Audrey? Where's Stephen? Let's go this way. Let's go that way. Let's go and tell Jenny this. Let's crack a few jokes while we're there. And they could have slowed it down, possibly.
They could have done with one more episode this week. Really, honestly. But hey, I don't do the schedules either. So, at Red Bank, Peter and Stephen are still... No, it's Stephen and Audrey. He's trying to defend himself and said, you know what? You abandoned me as a baby. Maybe you owe me some money. And Audrey says, look, I had no choice. Let's talk. And he doesn't have time for this. He wants to go back to the factory. I
couldn't believe Stephen when he was like this. I mean, I guess you might have some lingering resentment about being abandoned as a child, but we've seen very little of that so far, have we? We haven't had enough evidence to prove that Stephen is... harbours resentment about being abandoned. And to think that he thought that Audrey would go, oh yeah, you're right, you know what?
Oh yeah, how much
I deserve to be fleeced. Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, Stephen. Please have some more of my cash.
Does it work out like 10 grand a year or something? That kind of makes sense, I suppose. Now, I think this is interesting because I think this the fact that they brought this up to remind everybody makes me think this feeds into Audrey's insistence that he is innocent and has had wrong done to him and her guilt. Yeah. I think that's why she is so quick to defend him, because she's harbouring this guilt of the fact, just to remind everybody, that she did give him up for adoption when he was a baby. And they were estranged, and like we said earlier in the quiz, Gail didn't even know she had a half-brother until she was 30. So there's been many years passed between her seeing him as a baby and when they finally met up again. And she's like, oh, I had no choice. He wants to go to the factory, but she's standing in his way, and she says, you're going to have to push past me. And that's I think the last time we see of her for a bit. Yeah,
because the rest of the episode, well, a lot of the rest of the episode is where's Audrey, and the audience are led to think, oh, has Stephen bumped her off? The audience.
That's Audrey's fans.
Yeah, that is. That's the big Audrey fans, the audience.
Right, meanwhile...
I think we're all in the audience, aren't we, to be fair?
Proud member of the audience. Meanwhile, Gail asks David about Stephen's roof box. And where
Having
is it?
Having just seen it down the canal.
And David's like, I don't know, I thought it was down the tip. And then this is when you say, he reminded us, Kevin's like, what are you talking about roof box? I like cars. Yeah, I remember when I picked it up once, it was very heavy.
Anyway,
bye.
That's me done for the week.
I'm not in Fridays anyway. See you later. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.
I'm having an early dart this week.
Bye. I've got a long weekend. I'm gonna cartmill. Right, Carla's fuming in the factory because she's like, Michael's lost all the money, and she said, "This is like business as usual at the factory." So she says, "Right, everyone go home, including you." Peter comes in and finds her crying. And says, what has happened? And she's like, Stephen Reid has happened. See? Angry. Over at the cafe.
Thanks.
David shares his suspicions that Stephen's a murderer. David was one of my favourite minor characters all week. And it's so easy, to love him. He is hilarious and funny. Everything. Almost every line was a comedy gold this week. It's almost cheating.
I'm going to go against the grain on this one. I'm going to go against the popular opinion.
Go on then.
And I thought the Platts were a little bit annoying this week.
What?
I felt that although they did have some good lines, and I'm not going to say they didn't, my favourite one being Shona saying, what? She was given LSD for free, but David also did have some very funny remarks. I just didn't find it appropriate, and it didn't feel to me like the severity of the situation had really sunk into them, and they were almost going, oh, what are we like, eh? Oh, another murder. And the fact, how can we not see that?
They did feel somewhat incongruous and jovial.
Yeah, it's like, and I know these things do happen all the time around them, but you're not supposed to show it. I'm not sure.
Meta.
It was too meta. I'm not sure that it was completely the right move to have the Platts not be completely sober and serious about this.
I thought it worked because it's Stephen, and Stephen's always been camp and a bit.
The whole storyline has been, but I was really hoping.
Point of view.
I was really hoping at the beginning of this week that this would be a great opportunity for serious, non-buffoonish Gail, and we did see glimpses of it. When she saw the roof box in the canal and she was looking all suspicious, like, what's that? I thought, yeah, that's a decent performance from Helen Worth there, and Gail is putting two and two together. She's being a bit clever. There were some bits later in the week where she's kind of banding the family together and saying, no, come on, we've got to be in this together. I enjoyed that. But then you get the scene with her pulling a silly face at the phone, going, oh, whenever I try and log into my bank, it doesn't recognise my stupid face, and she pulls a funny face.
She didn't say stupid face.
You know, that's what I heard. Yeah, whenever I'm stressed, my bank app doesn't recognise my face, and she pulls this stupid face.
All right.
There must be something about the brother and sister trait to pull silly faces. And I was like, no, it just took me out of the moment a little bit. But I will happily stand back and say, okay, everybody else really, really enjoyed the Platts doing that this week. It must have been for a good reason, but I just didn't quite work for me.
All the Platts assemble and they leave the factory and they find Peter. He's marching towards Red Bank, which is where he's left Stephen, and he wants to have a go, and so they all go with him. So they're all marching along. Meanwhile, Sally's in the cafe with Roy and worrying about him, thinking he's had an accident, and Roy is very, very good with her, and he suggests that she makes a list of all the places that he might be and work through them systematically, and gives her the paper. And there's a funny bit where
he wants to take down an order, doesn't he?
Trainer's gives him a massive load of information that he can't remember.
He can't write it down because Sally's got the paper.
Everyone arrives at the flat. Peter kicks the door down and it's empty. They were expecting to find Gail and Audrey and Peter there.
No, Audrey and Stephen.
Oh.
I tell you, we're getting all the names right.
But all they find is a trophy with blood on it. Very suspicious. So that is going to have Peter's fingerprints and Stephen's blood.
Why is it going to have Peter's fingerprints? Peter didn't touch this statue.
Okay.
It was down on the floor. Yeah, that's fine. It's going to have Stephen's fingerprints and Stephen's blood.
I know, but all right, but they could still say that Peter had gloves on. There's no way to prove that he didn't. They can't prove. There's no evidence that he touched it, but there's also no evidence he didn't.
But he did push Stephen over, so.
And Audrey knows.
Yeah.
They all head out. Again, they're just, like you said, marching back and forth up and down the road, trying to get their steps in.
They really did get their steps in on Wednesday's episode.
Doing a community day, trying to get the flower badge.
People don't get that reference.
Everyone play Pitman Go. Add me as a friend. I need to get my steps in. Stephen is sneakily getting into a taxi. This is great. They're all just talking, and he's waiting, isn't he, at the tram stop. And when he gets in the car, he's like, "You've been left me waiting 15 minutes."
You made the good point while all this was happening. Like, why isn't Stephen just disappearing? He hangs around that street for a strangely long amount of time, doesn't he?
Yep.
But why not just get on a tram? Why risk being seen getting into a taxi there?
I don't know where he goes now.
He goes, this is him leaving for the airport.
So he thinks he's got his passport, so I don't know why he was... Yeah, why is he waiting at the tram stop for a taxi? That was one of the things that didn't make any sense. But it was worth it for the scene where all of the Platts are standing outside of the flats going, Where's Stephen? And he's in the taxi driving past them, just kind of going, don't look at him. He manages to duck. He's a master of disguise and camouflage. After the break, they're looking for Audrey. They go to the salon. She's not there.
Well, they can't get the door open, can they? No, nobody replies.
They get a message saying the police are coming over and they want to take a statement. And Carla shows up and tells Peter that she thinks he's killed everybody. And Peter's like, "Oh no, I nearly got him." But he didn't. I didn't. If only I'd known all this information. If only I'd been watching the show. should have listened to that podcast. Then there's a sound from the salon and Audrey opens the door and she's blaming herself. And this is, again, what I think feeds into her reluctance to believe that Stephen's done anything wrong. Because even though she doesn't even know all of the other stuff he's done, she's still blaming herself at this point.
Yeah, for being a bad mum.
Yeah.
I think maybe they could have built that up a little bit before it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit of her going from nothing to been such a terrible mum just after one conversation with Stephen.
Yeah, Michael, if your child tells you something as jaw-droppingly awful as "I blame you for giving me up as a baby," you don't have to be told this repeatedly for weeks for it to sink in.
Okay.
Right, so Roy goes over to Jenny and he's got her broccoli and Stilton quiche. I hope that at the viewing party on Friday, today, at the studios for the Coronation Street experience, where they got to watch this episode with Todd Boyce, they got to eat broccoli and Stilton quiche.
That was a lovely little scene, wasn't it? When do we ever see Jenny and Roy share a scene together like that?
This was fantastic.
Yeah.
I love them together, and I love Roy just going, yeah, quiche will fix this. She's crying.
Well, Jenny kind of does a little bit of a laughy cry, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's like, great.
What is this weird situation that I'm in?
Well, she's all, yeah, why would you bring me a quiche? But thanks, Roy. I guess it's better than being given a train set on your 84th birthday. This was the week of bad presents.
Yeah.
Audrey's telling Peter
If you're going to bring someone a quiche, don't make it a broccoli and Stilton quiche.
Well, you wouldn't like that at all.
I wouldn't like that. That's a risky move. Go for a quiche Lorraine. It's not the most exciting, but it's
a classic for a reason.
Yeah, likely that person's going to want it.
Well, Michael, I hate, now you've dissed it. We have actually got one in the fridge for tomorrow.
What? A quiche Lorraine or a broccoli and Stilton one?
I wouldn't buy you a broccoli and Stilton quiche.
Just check it. No, but we're having people around tomorrow. I don't know whether you've got one for them.
It's got bacon in it.
That's good.
Right, so Audrey's telling Peter that if only she'd kept Stephen as a baby, none of this would have happened. Which, I mean, honestly, maybe that's true. Again, we don't get any we don't get anything about fleshing out Stephen's life in the gaps that he's not been on the screen, which is disappointing, and I feel like a missed opportunity. Yeah. Don't know if Gabrielle's been left alive to do that. That would be interesting. But I'm guessing not, to be honest. The Platts come over and they're all sitting together. Peter hurries to his cab so he can drive around with a volume wall in the background, and he's telling Carla that he bets Stephen's on his way to the airport and he's going to rearrange his face. Another person that he's told that he wants to do violence to Stephen. Swain pulls up and Carla's like, meanwhile, David is convinced that Stephen's a serial killer, but the others don't believe it, and they're all bickering in kind of a very light-hearted manner. And Audrey's getting upset because I guess she also doesn't think they're taking it very seriously. Swain comes in and a uniform copper, and they've just heard that Stephen's flight has been changed and he could be on a flight to Bangkok. His flight is in 45 minutes. So this is the one that he'd arranged yesterday. So Stephen turns up at the airport and he's tricked everybody. He's not in Manchester, he's in Liverpool.
That was cool. That was a nice little twist. This moment, the Liverpool scene, had a couple of twists, and there was this one and the passport not being in the wallet.
That was great. Really good, yeah.
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 But I feel that they maybe could have done more at Liverpool Airport. It was nice to have a location shoot. But I wanted there to be, Stephen running through the airport, police chasing after him and all that. And all we got was the scene with him at the ticket desk.
Yeah, but you can't have that and everything else.
Yes, you could.
No, you can't.
You could.
Stephen's saying, well, I want the next flight out of here. Here, give me a ticket and here's my passport. And she's like, oh, it's not... I need your passport, like your passport case. That's what they sound like. As usual, the master of accents. Elaine's in the cafe with Sally and she's telling her... At this point, a lot of this is just people telling each other that Stephen's a killer or maybe a killer or has done all these dodgy things.
Yeah, well, this is the moment that Sally starts to suspect that maybe Stephen has killed Tim. She's not far away from the truth.
Roy leaves Rita and Jenny's and we zoom out and we see the back of Tim. Stephen.
No, but some people online thought it was Tim. And I was thinking,
why I got confused.
When that final scene on Wednesday's episode, that was great because, you see Stephen's shoulder and I was like, oh, Stephen's back. That makes sense. But then I saw some people online saying, hang on a minute, Tim was also wearing a very similar leathery, suede sort of jacket earlier in the week. Maybe it's Tim. And I thought, oh yeah, of course, bet it is Tim now. I bet they want us to think it's Stephen. It's actually Tim. Oh, I wish I hadn't read that theory, but then it just turned out it was Stephen anyway on Friday, so I didn't need to worry about that at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was the end of Wednesday's episode. And going into tonight's episode, I was very, very excited. Did you have any kind of theories about how you thought that it would play out?
I've just eaten a bit of cherry.
Sorry. I will tell you mine then. So before going into Friday's episode, I assumed that there would be some kind of confrontation between Stephen and Jenny in Rita's flat. I didn't really know how it had played out, but I did see some people online wondering whether Rita was going to come back to the flat while they were in the middle of something and there was going to be a whole fracas and maybe Rita was going to get knocked out or something. And in the end, none of that happened really, did it? Because it all played out by the Rovers. And unfortunately, Coronation Street made the... I'm really quite mad that they've done this. I was just this morning browsing around my phone, happened to open Instagram, and right there in the centre of Instagram was a picture of Stephen and Jenny, Stephen with a bottle to Jenny's neck outside the Rovers' return. Massive spoiler. Apparently there were plenty of spoilers. There were like other pictures, videos even from tonight's episode. Why do that? Have faith in your own programme that the 2 brilliant episodes so far this week are going to be enough to convince people to watch Friday. You don't need to spoil things like this. And of course there are lots of people who love a spoiler, but you know Coronation Street. This is a huge week. People are doing their best to go into these episodes blind. Big fans of Coronation Street wanted to go into this blind, and Corrie had even, up until this point, done a fantastic job of keeping completely quiet about it. The synopsis for today's episode was super short, wasn't it? Compared to the rest of the week's synopses, which actually went into quite a lot of detail about what would happen. The synopsis, that at least the one that we were sent, was as vague as you like. It didn't tell you anything. In the publicity pictures that were all in the press, none of them were for today's episodes. So up until last night, or whenever it was that this picture was put out on Corrie's social media, nobody had any idea from reading or seeing pictures what was going to happen in today's episode. So it was going to be a lovely surprise. First thing in the morning, here's a picture, not just from the beginning of it to whet your appetite. No, this is from the final act of the show. They show Jenny being held hostage by Stephen.
It took you 45 minutes.
Yeah, I had a problem with them showing that picture anyway, because I'd done so well avoiding spoilers, and I was like, oh, why did I have to see this? But the fact that I then watched today's episode with that constantly in the back of my mind, they are building up to a thing in the Rovers. Everything that was going on with Jenny, I was like, well, I know what's going to happen here. I know that she's going to meet Stephen in the pub, or, I assumed. I know that she's going to be in mortal danger. And it really affected how I watched the episode, because although I was still guessing about some things that would happen, I felt that I knew where it was heading. And the only thing we didn't know is that Stephen would then be hit by a car 2 minutes later.
This is the trouble with the spoilers like that, because it just taints your entire perspective, viewing. You're just going, how are we getting from here to there, and when is it going to happen? And as the time ticks, you're thinking, you haven't got enough time. I know where this is going, and the longer it takes to get to it, the less time after the spoiler I have to enjoy a spoiler-free experience.
Yeah, exactly. And we were left with 5-10 minutes if you're being generous. And I know some people like seeing a picture and then thinking, oh, I wonder how the characters are going to get into that situation. But really, it didn't take a whole lot of thinking about, did it? He was either going to find Jenny in her flat and then drag her out to the Rovers, or Jenny was going to go to the Rovers and Stephen was there. So when they started getting to the Rovers and Jenny thought she heard a noise inside, it's like, well, we know what's going to happen here then. And yes, there was the odd twist here and there, but honestly, I'm so disappointed that I saw that spoiler. I really wish that they hadn't put it there. I would have probably enjoyed tonight's episode a lot more if I hadn't gone into it knowing that. It's
really unfair that you can't use social media in the build-up of an event like this, because there are loads of people, and and not get a spoiler, because lots of people will be listening and saying, well, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have gone on social media. But as a fan, you should be able to go online and say, I'm excited about this event, this episode.
Yeah, without
worrying,
yeah.
well, I'm going to see something I don't want to see. I don't know how... Okay, well, this is a really weird thing to say, but, like, for example, when in my job, we have features and you get pull quotes, and the pull quotes, you take them out and you put them in the middle of the, of the feature, and you make them bold so that people can go, oh, that's interesting, I actually want to read this feature. You don't put something, like, from the end of the feature that's going to spoil some kind of conclusion.
No.
And you also make sure that there's stuff in the feature that you can pull out. So if I'm reading a feature and I'm like thinking there's no pull quote here, that means it's not a good feature. Okay, so when they're creating these episodes, perhaps they need to and I've said this before about the publicity, I don't think they work together in a way that benefits the people that don't want to get spoilers, because there should be something at the beginning of the episode that they could have used as a picture, and I don't think there really was, to drum up anticipation about getting people in to watch. And I don't think, this was like, you can't make the whole show revolve around I need a picture for not spoil it, but equally you've kind of blown that episode by spoiling it with a picture. So you do need to have some kind of strategy for enticing people without ruining the plot.
I mean, what they could have done for today's episode is shown that scene of Stephen running down the Ginnel, or a picture of him still on the street, because it wasn't 100% confirmed that he would go back to the street, but the fact that we saw his jacket at the end of Wednesday and we thought, well, that's probably him, meant that they could have shown a picture of him running down the Ginnel, and that would have been enough to tease you.
Yeah,
the audience was already hooked in Coronation Street. You didn't need to try that.
Sometimes they will make a trailer that is completely from
the episodes.
From the episodes, and sometimes they'll properly make a trailer that is an artistic representation, like they did with the Imran Crash stuff. They didn't do that with this week that I know.
No, they didn't have any big. Well, they had a bit of a flashy light trailer, didn't they? But it wasn't...
Yeah, but that was taken from the show.
Yeah.
But they also, I don't think, had a good picture, and they only had one.
For today?
For the whole week. They had that picture, which was the...
Oh, no, they usually only have one.
But they should have more, that's my point. They went to all the trouble of making this composite picture of everybody. Obviously, different days, weeks, months, years.
Very clearly photoshopped characters.
I don't even know if they told... bless her heart.
Or Stu Nichols,
what she was doing. I think they just snapped her walking into work. Right? She didn't look bothered. Everyone just looks slightly cross or anxious.
I don't mind the picture.
I hated it.
You don't
like
this week's
cheap
picture,
as hell.
did you?
It was not good. They could have had some people in the same room at the same time. I mean, for goodness sake, anyway. But you're going to go to the trouble to make one photo. Why not make more than one and use that to make people come in for Friday's episode, instead of you just using a picture going, oh, this will happen at the end. Why don't you just show us a picture of bloody Tim in the middle of the woods if we're going to do that?
This is like the
Why
equivalent...
don't you just fast forward to the end of Coronation Street where Ken's dead?
Yeah.
You're going to do that.
This is like the equivalent, and I'm sorry, there is going to be a Game of Thrones spoiler here, but it's been finished long enough. This is like, the Battle of Winterfell episode, epic episode in the end of the towards the end of the final season, that not everybody enjoyed it, but everyone was waiting for this confrontation between Arya and the Night King. This would have been like the publicity shot for the episode being that scene where he's got her grabbed round the neck just seconds before she does the whole knife switcheroo. Yeah. Like, no, I don't want to know the climax of this epic battle that Arya's being held aloft by her mortal enemy, the Night King. That's completely spoiled it for me, because I'll spend the whole episode wondering how are they going to get to there, rather than just going, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. Oh, man, these spoilers, that really, really wound me up.
You can promote this without spoiling it.
Yeah, and I totally get that the idea of the publicity department is to get as many people in watching it as possible.
And you'll never know.
Get that ad revenue.
You'll never know whether it would have worked with something different. That they're completely right if they're going to say, this is the strategy that will get us the most views and the most money. We're going to do this. They're right.
I know, they're right. It feels like.
But we can say we don't like it.
Spoiler-adverse fans are kind of not getting considered.
And at the end of the day, we need them to make money so they can make the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
Oh, I just wish I hadn't found out.
One thing I want to say about the fact that we had Tim from Monday in a boot. Hilarious, of course, goes without saying. But it did mean pretty much most of the rest of the week, really Stephen's only real issue was how quickly he could get out of Weatherfield.
Yeah.
And he didn't really seem that fussed about getting away that quickly, did he? He loitered around for ages.
He was saying he was, but really he did do an awful lot of loitering.
But what I'm trying to say, like, there was no antagonist for him. There was no kind of like, oh no, is Stephen going to get caught out by, by this? But it should have been Tim. Tim should have been there. Tim should have been running around going, hey, have you seen Stephen? Instead we got a gang of people.
Tim's been suspicious of Stephen. Tim's been Stephen's mortal enemy for quite a long time now, whereas Peter kind of feels like he's a little bit of a
he's
a
not
Johnny
liked
come
him
lately.
for a while.
It's
because of Carla. He's been moaning about Stephen for a while.
It feels like
but
Tim's had a bee in his bonnet about Stephen for a lot longer than Peter.
But the two people who really felt like Stephen's enemy weren't there for the majority of the time. We had that nice confrontation on Monday between him and Tim. Then at the very end, Peter turns up and bonks him with his car. Sorry, mate.
But Peter did have the scene on Wednesday in the Red Bank flat.
I guess so, but it didn't ever feel like... Yeah, but he didn't know what he was confronting him. He was confronting him over a completely different thing. Then later on, when he found out the extra stuff that he did, then he wanted to go and get him again.
Tell you what.
But do you see what I mean? At no point was Stephen really... It was his own lack of planning that did him in, which doesn't feel like a satisfying ending for a villain.
No, it didn't. It was just something came out of nowhere. Tell you what, Tim's going to be so mad at Peter that he didn't get to kill him off himself.
And it's also, if you could use in a taxi, why not mine?
Yeah.
I was locked in mine. That's a bummer, that is.
Yeah, there was Steve even in it this week going, hang on a minute, where's my taxi? Don't they have like trackers on them?
Yeah, Steve, you mean, not Stephen.
Steve, sorry, it's Steve. Yeah.
Are you going to do Fridays?
Oh yes, it's my turn, isn't it? Sorry, everybody. So we start the flash forward, don't we? Peter saying, "Oh, I knew he spiked my wife with LSD."
See?
Michael saying, "Yeah, exactly." Michael saying, "Oh, he tricked me. I can't believe that I was so foolish to have fallen for his plot."
He tricked me by saying that Carla said it was fine.
Yeah, and Sarah saying, "He's my uncle," and then he goes and does this. And at this point, I was still thinking, has Sarah Louise bumped Stephen off? Because you had that theory after watching Wednesday's episode. And I went into today's episode thinking, that'd be really exciting if Sarah isn't bumped off by Stephen. But what if it's the other way around? I hadn't considered that. That could be quite cool.
Can I say, in the future, when AI is properly, like it's already very much almost there. But in the future... we could use this technology to have a trick flash forward that actually is the person's really dead and their sad beloved spouse is made an AI version of them talking about the thing that's happened to them. Just an idea, just put that in the drawer.
Anyway, so we weren't sure after Wednesday's episode whether that was Stephen or Tim who was loitering in the street. I'd assumed it was Stephen, then read it was Tim. But no, 'tis Stephen indeed, and he's loitering around the cabin as Rita lets herself in at home to take herself away from the action.
She's like,
there's a couple of police officers there.
Of a show about my life at 9 o'clock.
Oh, by the way,
is that because I'm going to die? Who knows?
By the way, the scene at the airport where Stephen overhears police officers going over there. I thought it would have been more effective if they'd have said like Sarge over there or something, because Stephen kind of was a bit jumpy because he's like, there's police saying over there, but he didn't know that they were police because he had his back to them. Anyway, police pull up outside number 8, and while they're distracted talking to Michael, Stephen runs across the road down the Ginnel. Back to you enjoying your drink.
I've
You're
just
very
finished
noisy
my drink.
Ice cubes.
Oh!
Now you've knocked over Pat
Phoenix has fallen over.
Okay, so Rita's having a nice cuppa with Jenny, Jenny reveals that she took Stephen's passport to stop him escaping.
Nice one.
So I hadn't caught this line at all when I watched it, but I saw somebody else had pointed out that Jenny had said on Wednesday, I don't think he's going to get very far.
Yeah,
so,
good one.
Bit of a bold move, but of course Jenny at this point doesn't know that Stephen's a murderer. So although she thinks, well, he's probably gonna be really mad at me, although Rita has to point out, well, he's probably gonna come back and get you, you silly mare. Jenny doesn't think that she's at any risk of being bonked on the head with a wine bottle at this point. Yeah. So that's going on there. Platts, meanwhile, are assembling at number 8 again.
You've written the Platts assemble quite a few times.
That's what they were doing. They were all getting
Platts
together
assemble.
and they're combining their powers this week. They don't know what to do with themselves. Not have a drink, Gail says, because we all need to keep our heads. So they all agree to stay there tonight. They're gonna barricade themselves into number 8 and all lock down and stay together. And Nick says, look, there's no point. Stephen's obviously made his getaway. Nick was fairly superfluous this week, wasn't he? He was there because the whole of the Platts were there and it kind of felt like he needed to be, but he didn't have a whole lot to say.
No.
Really.
He did bring up Richard Hillman.
Oh yeah, he did, doesn't he?
Very briefly.
Richard did get a name drop, thank you, Nick.
You would have thought it would have been more of a topic of conversation, but perhaps in the scenes that we didn't get to see.
I hope that they make a thing of that more next week. I hope that Gail is going to be like, I can't believe I've fallen for this twice. Honestly, what am I like?
But I also love the way that Gail's like, we've got to do the catering. How are we going to feed everyone? And meanwhile, David's like, the toilet situation, the bathroom. We have to make a rota. I don't know what's gonna.
Yeah, again, I found it funny. But I just don't know whether this week was the week for that.
I thought, wow, okay.
Anyway, so that Peter, meanwhile, is having another drive past the volume wall, talking to Carla on his hands-free. He reckons that Stephen's still around here somewhere. I kind of missed it. Did one of his taxi mates... maybe it was his taxi mate and the girl...
he gets told that he was dropped off at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Or something dropped back home. He knows that he's not got on this plane.
Yeah, somehow he's found that, and he's going to go on the hunt for him, and he's really mad because he didn't stop Stephen over in Red Bank while he had the chance.
Yeah.
So Sally and Elaine, meanwhile, are turning up at the police
cares
station
about Tim. Go away.
with new information about Stephen Reid. They reckon that he had something to do with Tim's disappearance.
Where's Tim gone?
Swain says, "Oh, come through, come and talk to me."
No, go away.
I can't remember what they say.
And then Swain goes, write it on this bit of paper, and then they write it down, and she picks it up, screws it up, and throws it in the bin.
Shona, David and Sarah's wondering where Stephen's got to. Sarah's like, well, I read maybe you got an earlier flight somewhere. And they're all a little bit worried about Audrey, and David is still convinced at this point that Stephen's a killer. Sally and Elaine are in with Swain, all saying about this is, Stephen has been a bit of a wrong on all year. He was engaged to me at one point, says Elaine, and then he tried to do...
Made a face at me in a microwave.
Yeah, honestly, if that's not...
Swain's like, hang on a minute, nobody told me this.
If we'd have known that he made a face and you were in the microwave, we'd have arrested him months ago.
You could have saved Rufus's life.
So basically they're trying to tell Swain about all the other dodgy things that Stephen's been up to.
And they're suspicious that he's killed.
And then Swain shows them a picture of Tim's wallet that's been picked up by the canal, and Sally's like, that was the little MacGuffin from last week's episodes. I recognise that. And by the way, that's just reminded me, for some reason, that there was some blood on Stephen's collar last night. Uh-oh, what if it's Tim's blood? Oh, no. Peter gets home, disappointed that he's wasted his time. He's been driving around Manchester trying to find Stephen, but to no avail. And at this point, I was even more saying, what was the point of that volume wall scene? Why did Peter have to be driving down that? Nothing has happened in the car. But anyway, Carla's on a laptop realising how much in the doo-doo that Underworld really is at the moment, thanks to Stephen's little withdrawal on Wednesday. And Peter says, this is when Peter gets his lead from his taxi mate friend. I think before he was just coming home. This is where he finds it out. So he goes off hunting again. Jenny and Rita have decided they're fed up of sitting around in Rita's flat. And even though there's a potentially deadly criminal on the loose, even though they don't know he's a murderer, they thought, let's go and have a wander. Rita's basically just said to her in the last scene, if I was Stephen, I'd be coming to find you and tracking you down at the moment. So they just make it a lot easier by walking out in plain sight. And they get past the Rovers. They're going to go to the cafe for a bit. So I don't know why they're on that side of the road, but never mind.
Maybe they want to do a big loop round. Maybe they're worried they might be able to take the corners a bit too tight.
Maybe they're jealous of the steps that the Platts got in on Wednesday, and they're trying to make up for it. And
maybe they're in
Friday.
Maybe Coronation Bleat also has, which is the group chat. Coronation Bleat.
I see. It's not as catchy as Platt Chat, is it? Coronation Bleat.
I bet all the Platts secretly think it's great that they've got a better group chat name.
Yeah, that could be a podcast name, couldn't it? Coronation
That's what I was thinking.
Bleat.
Yeah, we need to.
It does make it sound like it's a podcast for sheep, though, doesn't it?
It makes it sound like
podcast for goats.
Ranting, which sounds like podcast.
No. What?
Yeah, maybe they all post their step amounts on Coronation Bleat, and Jenny and Rita like them count this.
Anyway, so Jenny decides again. Bit of a strange move that after hearing this noise.
No, we haven't heard the noise yet.
I did say they heard
a
noise. I'm sure I said that. Jenny says, "Let's go round the back." And Rita's like, "What are you doing? This Rovers has got nothing to do with you anymore. Why would you do this?" Literally, I was shouting at the TV. Well, I wasn't, but in my head I was. Jenny, you know that there is someone dodgy on the street. Don't go into dark pubs.
No, I didn't think that was weird. She's still got an affection. This used to be her home. And she knows nobody's in there.
But she should be on edge about anything.
Well, she is on edge, but she's going to investigate. So she goes down the back.
Bad moves. Meanwhile, Peter's...
Making bad choices is not an incorrect.
No, I know that's soaps are all made up of people making bad choices, aren't they?
If characters in fiction only ever made the correct, sensible decisions in every situation, most stories would be very short and boring.
Very true. Okay, so they go around the back. They find that the back door has been broken in.
Oh no!
Rita's like, "This could be Stephen. What the hell are you doing, Jenny?" Because Jenny's just going, "La la la. I'm going to go inside and have an investigate." Honestly, what a stupid thing to do. After a little while, she comes back out and starts phoning the police, going, "Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should get them involved."
Well, she says people have been in there.
Yeah, and an outburst, Dylan and Mason making a little cameo for the week because they've been up to all sorts in the back of the Rovers today. And
they've been drinking sherry by the looks of it.
Oh, is that what it was?
Well, that's the only thing that's left.
That looks like the sort of drink that Mason would have, I reckon. Anyway, Jenny, after seeing them come out, is like, well, what have they been up to? So she goes back into the pub again. Don't worry, Rita, I'll be okay. You go off to the cafe.
Well,
I'm going to investigate this dark pub all by myself with a vicious criminal on the loose. She's
probably just thinking, I wish I could just spend another moment here in this place that I'm not allowed in.
Oh, maybe.
All the happy memories. Maybe she's like, maybe I'll hear a nice echoey voice of somebody. Maybe I'll hear Johnny again.
Then we have a couple of scenes of nothing really. I felt that Friday's episode was a little bit slow paced, considering how fast everything was moving on Wednesday. It took a little longer than I'd wanted to build up to the climax on Friday, and then it's just like, and he's hit by a car at the end.
Yeah.
So Adam's turned up. He's like, "Oh, I hear there's a big week on. Why didn't nobody tell me? I've only got here on Friday, but look at my lovely haircut." And she says, because Sarah Louise has done a bit of a disappearing act at this point, hasn't she?
No one knows where she's gone.
No. And is she in danger? And I was thinking, and again, nice that they got the audience to maybe feel a little bit worried about Sarah's safety at this point. So back to Jenny, and she's having a little look around the bar. She can't turn the lights on because the electricity's been cut. Everything's been covered in sheets. Now this has been, has it been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I think it's just been 2 since they were booted out the Rovers. I thought the idea was that they were going to get cracking with the renovation work straight away. No. This is just asking for the Rovers to go back to normal once their story's done. That's and have absolutely no changes to it. Anyway, she's there and she pours herself a drink, raises a glass to Johnny. Nice touch, like it. And then there's a bit of a jump scare, isn't there? Because we're all expecting Stephen to leap out at her at this point. Clearly he's going to be in there. But Sarah walks into the bar and Jenny gets frightened by life.
Only joking, Jenny.
And I was like, what was Sarah doing there?
Her reasons for being there are very flaky. She said she saw the door was open and she came in to investigate. Why was she in the ginnel?
No, she doesn't. She maybe I wrote that because I misheard. The reason that she says that she was there which we find out a little bit later, was I saw you closing the curtains up on the top floor, Jenny. And
Why
so
would
I just...
you go in to talk to her, though?
I don't really know. I agree it was very, very flaky. It was quite contrived to get her in there with Jenny.
I'm just going to say, you asked me earlier and I was eating a cherry, what did I think was going to happen in this episode?
Oh, I did, didn't I?
And I didn't answer you. I'm just going to say it now. I also saw this picture of Jenny with the bottle to her throat outside with Stephen. Before then, I didn't really have any idea how this was going to end. But once I saw that picture, I formulated my idea was that Stephen would come back to the street to look for his passport. He'd confront Jenny. She'd admit that she had taken it. He holds her neck, the thing to her neck. It kind of, I can't remember whether it's obvious from the picture or not that it's obvious from the picture he's holding her hostage, so there must be an audience of people watching, otherwise why would you be doing that?
Who you're performing to.
So then my imagination was that he then took her into the Rovers and it was just the two of them. Then there's some kind of fight and she kills Stephen or Stephen gets killed by somebody, and that's why the Waterfords company relinquishes their hold on the pub and gives it back to Jenny.
Why? Because there's been a murder.
Because there's been a murder and suddenly nobody they're like, this is now devalued. Nobody's going to want to drink in this pub. It's a liability.
You wait, people. There's been an awful lot of naughtiness gone on that pub over the years.
I know.
There had definitely been the odd death. Martha Longhurst died in this place. I'm not stepping foot over that threshold until it's been fumigated.
At every moment, especially where it involves the Rovers or the mention of the Rovers, my brain is ticking going, how do we get back to Jenny and the Rovers? Because the Waterfords are not going to keep this pub. They're not going to develop it. This is what I think. They're not going to change anything because of the reasons we stated before, including the very boring reason that Coronation Street, the experience, has just made a replica that cost them a load of money so you can have your photos taken in the Rovers. And I don't imagine that it would make any business sense for them to have been allowed to have done that if they knew that they were going to change the interior of the pub. But then again, Coronation Street has done weirder things. So that was my prediction.
Yeah, I thought that from that photo that I saw that maybe somebody was going to burst out of the pub from behind Stephen and then bop him on the head. Like Sarah, I was quite convinced Sarah was going to do it for going into the episode. But I was wrong. Anyway, they had a nice little bit of building of tension when they had the scene at number 11 when Sean tears a strip off of Dylan for having to sneak around in the Rovers and like, what are you doing in there? Well, you broke into this place so you get up to naughtiness with that Mason guy. And Dylan's like, but wait, we didn't break in. It was already broken into when we got there.
You predicted he would say that.
I did. I said he was going to say that. And obviously by this point we didn't need any more clues to that Stephen was going to be there. We all knew that of course Stephen was going to be there. But that little bit at the end of the scene was quite fun.
I like the way they built that in.
Yeah, I did. I thought the Sean was great again today, just putting out.
When Sean appeared, I was like, I bet there are so many people who are proper mad that Sean has just appeared for no reason.
So Sarah and Jenny decide just to hang around in the bar chatting.
Well, they're having sherry.
Yeah, as if there isn't a dangerous criminal on the loose.
Whoa.
And Sarah casually reveals that, oh yeah, we reckon Stephen's probably a murderer as well. Just dropping that out there, Jenny. And Jenny's like, bloody hell. And she has a major panic attack, doesn't she? And then she starts over the course of the next few minutes to piece together everything that's gone on. And then Sarah says, well, anyway, the reason that I came in is I saw you closing the curtains upstairs. And Jenny's like, I've not been upstairs. And then
oh no!
Finally, they're like, I think we could be in danger here. I feel really bad. You put a tweet out about this, didn't you? Saying if I was Jenny, I'd be a bit offended if Sarah had thought that Stephen Reid was me.
There's no resemblance whatsoever to hulking, great big, short-haired, masculine Stephen Reid and lovely, dainty, little, long-haired Jenny Connor.
No, that must have been a real kind of out of the corner of my eye thing.
Here's my question: why did Sarah think it was Jenny?
I don't know.
Because there's no reason Jenny would be there closing the curtains, and there's also no reason that Sarah would go, well, I know what I'll do. I'll go in and talk to her.
No, it would really
if I
was
Sarah,
not great.
I would go, oh, it looks like there's somebody's in the Rovers and they must be starting the renovation work.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't immediately think, oh, Jenny must have snuck in to drink some sherry. I bet I can get
think
some
I'll
free
join
stuff.
her because, everything's going wrong with my family at the moment.
I don't want to hang out with
There's a dangerous killer on the loose, but why not just take a break and go to the Rovers?
Plat chat's buzzing, so's Coronation bleat. I just want to get away from everybody. I'm going to hide in the pub.
Yeah. Anyway, they realise at this point we could be in mortal peril. I think there might be somebody upstairs. Back they go to the back of the bar, through to the bit towards the front door, and donk! Stephen jumps out of nowhere, clocks Sarah around the back of the head with something that sounded very, very heavy and probably quite painful, and she's out cold on the floor. And I think I probably was screaming literally at the TV at this point, yeah, kill her, finish her off. And I said, I don't want Sarah to die, but I just wanted, at this point, we were, 15, 20 minutes maybe away from the end of the episode. And as this today's episode got to, the halfway point, because Stephen was barely in it, was he? He had that scene at the beginning where we were shuffling down the ginnel, and then there was a good half an hour or so where we didn't even see him.
I will say this about, the comparisons are inescapable between this and Pat Phelan's final week. I will say that Stephen was at least in this week a lot more than Pat was in his week.
This was a better ending week for a serial killer than Pat ever got, because he just showed up at the last minute for his grand finale, and there were other stories going on at the same time. We were really
disappointed in that, as I recall.
So
the actual ending was better.
Even though I was underwhelmed by Stephen's ending, I really did appreciate that they dedicated the whole week to this story.
Good job,
and we
Corrie.
didn't have Stu popping up going, oh, Eliza, your dad's come around again.
Run her over as well.
Yeah, so anyway, that was good.
Yeah. She's on the floor. Sarah's on the floor.
Sarah's on the floor at this point. She's been knocked out cold. And again, I'm like, if it's not confirmed that she's dead in the next few seconds,
immediately.
She ain't dead. She ain't dead. And Jenny's like, oh, what have you done? And Stephen, obviously, this is his niece. He might be a bad un, but he never wanted to kill anyone in his family. And he's like desperately worried about what he's done. I mean, what is that? Not just what have I done, that's my niece, but what's my mum going to say? What's Gail going to say? Then he starts shouting at Jenny, this is your fault, you made me come here. If you hadn't stolen my passport, I'd never be here. But
here's my question, and I don't think it was ever really clear. Why did he bonk her on the head?
I don't know.
There was literally no reason.
It depends whether he knew who was there, but he must have done, because he must have overheard them.
He was shouting at Jenny that she's made him her niece. I mean, the only thing I can think of was that he wanted Jenny to give him the passport, so he needed to bonk Sarah on the head to get out of the way so he could ask Jenny where the passport was. But he didn't say that, and it would have made more sense for him to just have stayed hidden and then run off to Jenny's flat and then bonked Rita on the head. But do you see what I mean? Why did he hit Sarah? I don't know.
I don't know.
There was no reason for him to have done it. He jumped out of nowhere. They suspected they weren't alone, but they didn't know he was there. They were just being paranoid, really.
So over at the Platts number 8, they see a message from Sarah's phone sent by Stephen saying that she's at the precinct with Jenny. Possibly a bit of a filler scene. I don't know whether... Yes, it was... They were worried where Sarah was, but I don't think they really needed that.
He should have been like, we're getting ice cream. And then the Platts would be like, what? Ask him can you ask them if they can bring me a milkshake? I'm sweet enough, please.
Anyway, obviously it is Stephen who's done this message, and now he's demanding his passport from Jenny, and she's like, I didn't take it. She's absolutely terrified. Again, brilliant performance here. You could see the fear in her eyes.
Yeah, she's
he doesn't believe
her.
And as the episode hurtles towards its conclusion at this point, Stephen is just getting more and more angry, isn't he? Desperate.
I've only got a quarter of an hour left to live.
He's like, you do not want to mess with me today. He's like,
so scary.
He's spitting out all his words here. It's hilarious.
It's not hilarious.
It was. I
thought it was scary.
And Sarah starts to stir, and Jenny's like, oh, Sarah, you're okay?
I thought they were going to do that.
She's definitely fine then.
That classic thing where... Because Stephen was facing Jenny away from Sarah, and Sarah was behind him on the floor. And then Jenny kind of looks, and you can tell that she can see that Sarah's moving. And I was expecting her to look at Sarah and then look back Stephen and like pretend that she hadn't seen.
Yeah,
and then Sarah would jump up
I thought that as
and
well.
attack him, but she didn't do that. She ran straight over to Sarah to see if she was all right.
Well, Sarah
which is
did
actually
end
the
up
more
making a
normal
surprise
thing.
appearance. Yeah, it is. Sarah did end up making a surprise appearance in the bar later, didn't she?
What?
When she smashed Stephen with the chair.
Okay.
I do wonder how Stephen managed to dispatch of Leo by just giving him a bit of a push into a railing, and Teddy literally with a hole punch. Yeah, he smacks Tim on the head with a metal pipe and Sarah, and somehow they managed to survive. So he kills somebody with a hole punch, but not with the pipe. There's something that's not right there.
Don't use logic.
Anyway, Jenny starts to piece things together because he's being quite threatening towards her, and she's like, "You killed Leo, didn't you? Oh no." She's saying, "Yeah, I want to know everything." And finally, after denying it for so long, he admits that it was an accident. She's like, "Why didn't you phone an ambulance?" And he basically does a bit of an exposition dump, doesn't he? Where he tells her everything, really. He even says, "I killed Teddy with a hole punch." And
it's
then
like a piece
Rufus
of stationery.
And then Rufus with my bare hands. But I'll never kill you. And I totally would believe that.
I believe he believed that in that moment, but I also think that he would have.
Well, I suppose the fact that he did then take her out with a bottle to her neck.
Yeah.
Did he really love her?
I don't know. Because, listen, this man was married to Gabrielle. We don't know how long for. You don't get married to somebody for, like, a plot reason. He obviously loved Gabrielle too. But he tries to tell Jenny later that she's the only woman he's ever loved, or the only love of his life. I don't believe him.
I think he loved Gabrielle as well.
Yeah, I know, but that's my point.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I agree with you. Anyway, he starts having a bit of a sob story about how he was a failure in Milan, and now over in Weatherfield it was his chance to start again, and he didn't want Audrey to see him fail because he loves Audrey so much. And Jenny's like, "Will you get away then quickly before Audrey sees you for what you are? Passport's in me bag." And then this is when he says, "Oh, Jenny, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. This is the only genuine thing about my life here." Is this where he starts to say, "Jenny, come along with me"? I can't remember. But it gets interrupted, whatever they're saying, because they start to hear voices outside. Stephen puts his hand over Jenny's mouth to stop her screaming for help. This is where he says we could go to Thailand, and
maybe it's not too late. Remember the good times.
And then she knees him in the balls.
That's what always happens to when you tell a woman you love them, innit? Right, lads?
Yeah.
She knees you in the balls, whether it's literally or figuratively.
So this is when she tries to run to the door, and she's kicking and screaming at this door, but it's all boarded up because of the Waterford closure. So he drags her away from it. But outside, Sean and Adam are there listening in, trying to get this door open. Sean calls the police because he realised there's a bit of a fracas in there, and Adam runs round for the back door. And when Adam ran round for the back door, it's like, oh, he's inserted himself in this story now. Is he going to get bumped off? And even though I was watching my clock and going, oh, he's not got much time left to kill anybody, I was thinking, Adam, yeah, I'll take him. That's fine. That'll do. So anyway, back inside the pub, Stephen's wrestling Jenny to the ground and grabs a piece of broken glass. Now, I don't know whether I missaw this, but I thought that he kind of tucked a piece of glass into his jacket and then he took another one later, but this second piece of glass never materialised later, so maybe I was wrong with that.
Well, he picks up the broken bottle.
Yeah, he does. He's got a broken bottle anyway. And Sarah, this is the point where Sarah pops out of nowhere, seemingly completely fine, having been hit quite hard around the head with a metal pipe. And she swings a chair at him. He goes down on the floor for a bit, but then jumps up like the Terminator not long after and holds a bottle to Sarah's throat. So after the break, onto the final quarter now, and Adam, Sean and Sarah exit the Rovers, followed by Stephen and Jenny.
Michael and Adam have rushed in at this point, and then the doors open, and they all go out the front. Yeah,
and then Stephen and Jenny come out not long afterwards, and Stephen's got Jenny as hostage, and he's like, "Give me a car." He should have asked for a helicopter. He probably could have got one this week because ITV had it on loan.
I've always thought if I'm in a hostage situation where I'm holding hostages, I'm gonna definitely ask for pizza. It's a traditional food to eat when you're holding people hostage. It's quite exciting because you don't have to pay for it.
It only works if you got him trapped in a room because his hands were quite busy.
Get me a pizza and don't use a coupon code.
Feed it to me.
Anyway, he's there, but also he's being observed by the array of plats.
Yeah, people have started to show up. Onlookers
so loads
are gathering.
of people are there, aren't they, at this point?
I can't remember who else there was.
Adam, Sean,
Audrey's
Sarah,
not turned up at this point yet.
David, must be Nick there too.
Yeah.
Because he demands the car from David, and David's like, "Why my car? Why not Nick's car? It's faster." And he's like, "No, go get your car, and if she'll not back in 30 seconds, she dies." Jenny's not happy.
No.
And then she tells everybody that Stephen's killed everyone.
She starts telling everybody about Stephen's confession. The truth finally starts to dawn on Michael that his mentor in business for all these months is actually a massive criminal. And Stephen says, "Yeah, I don't have any remorse." This is like he was peak ranting criminal at this point, wasn't he? He was like saying "wah ha 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 ha."
It was like a Batman villain. But then what never happens in a Batman movie. His mum comes over.
His mumsy comes along and says, "Oh, Stephen, what are you doing, my love?"
I like this because she just said
this.
it. She just said it and she's like, "What are you doing, my love?"
Everyone else was like...
in
really,
high tension mode.
in kind of crisis kind of mode. And Audrey... And I don't know whether she was doing it on purpose to try and calm things down or whether... Yeah, exactly.
I think she just got pushed to the edge of like... I don't know if this is even real. Like, is this real? I don't know. Am I in a dream?
But
what are you doing?
I love this. And she's like, "What are you doing, love? Come on."
No, she didn't say it like that. She just sounded broken and sad.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
You silly sausage.
No, she wasn't
like
that.
No, exactly. I'm saying that she wasn't like that. Over at the cafe, Rita's overhearing. She's been waiting for Jenny for ages to do that.
No, it's Carla. She gets a call from Peter.
Yeah, but Rita's there as well, isn't she? And she overhears this call from Peter.
Oh dear, she says.
Which was them talking about Stephen Reid potentially being on the loose. So she rushes out over to the pub. Does Carla to go and join everything that's going on. The hostage situation's still going on when Carla turns up. Audrey's still trying to talk Stephen down, and he's yelling and he's ranting as David pulls up in his car, and Stephen drags Jenny over to it, and I'm again looking at my watch at the moment thinking,
you haven't got long.
You've got literally minutes left, Stephen. You're gonna probably die at the end of this, or are you're not gonna drive away? I didn't know what was gonna happen here, and I was thinking, Is Jenny still in danger? Probably not. And Jenny starts taunting Stephen about, Audrey's not going to be proud of you now, and you said that the only reason you came back here was to make her proud. And he stops to think for a minute.
Then we
zoom out. He relinquishes Jenny.
They have an exchange of... They say something to each other. We hear the bottle drop. We don't see it. But then we see...
He sees
Stephen in the middle of the road without anything in his hand. Either of his hands.
And Peter, then we see a shot of him appearing out of nowhere, and then we see Stephen from his point of view, knocks into him, Stephen goes flying, and that's that really. His dying body is
so fast.
It really, really was.
It was not.
It wasn't like, "Oh, that came out of nowhere, how exciting." It was like, but they ran out of time and thought, "I don't know, let's just have a car hit him." Obviously, it's building into another story, but...
And where we died on Rosamond Street? No. Yeah. Which is the shortest road.
Yeah, I don't know how Peter A was able to get quite a run.
We've made jokes about this stretch of road before being incredibly dangerous, even though you can't actually go that fast.
Yeah, quite a few people have been knocked down or nearly knocked down in that tiny little stretch.
Weatherfield Council, get me around this, should have put speed bumps in by now for the amount of fatalities or near fatalities.
So he's there gurgling away on the ground. Audrey comes over and she's like, no, it's my Stephen.
Me and Audrey
everyone's
are
crowding
the only ones
round.
Who understands
and
lost.
He's not in a good way. Sally's still wittering on about Tim. And,
Shut up.
Stephen dies. And
Michael does the CPR.
He does some
the best CPR that anyone's ever done on the show.
Yeah. Well, I said at the time, if anyone... The other thing that has appeared on Corrie's social media, I think this was on Wednesday, was a little pillow that's been made out of Todd Boyce's, Stephen's suede jacket that was given to him as a gift on his final episode. And I was like, I wonder whether Michael's just doing CPR on the jacket there, and he can be as forceful as he wants. But poor Michael, even though he's now realises what Stephen's done and how he's lied all the time, he still wants to save him.
I just love the way that they roll they roll Stephen over, and there's Audrey's like, oh my love, oh no, and Michael's doing chest compressions, and Sally's going, where is Tim? Do you know where Tim is? He owes me a tagine.
This reminded me a bit of when James collapsed on the football pitch, and they were having to do the chest compressions there, weren't they? Well,
if you're in any doubt as to whether Stephen is dead or not, he gets zipped into the body bag. Traditional Coronation Street.
Yeah, that's exactly the way of saying they're not coming back. But I really, really loved that he had a little grin on his face, didn't he? He had a smirk.
Really,
he did. He was having a bit of a smirk.
He had a bit of a Mona Lisa smile. Is he smiling? Is he
yes,
sad?
he was.
Okay.
Wasn't that cheesy, everybody? Wasn't that a cheesy 12 months of murder? I thought that was absolutely perfect for him. I loved that final moment. That was
Sally's
so clever. Sally's still...
Where's Tim?
Yeah, what about Tim? Audrey, we then cut to in number 8 speaking to the police. She's like, I want justice for Stephen. That Peter Barlow, he murdered him in cold blood. You write that down, everyone.
She says he was going to give himself up. Peter Barlow murdered him.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
I can't understand why people don't get why Audrey would say this.
Throughout this episode and Wednesday's episode, she was the main person who didn't want to entertain the idea that Stephen was actually a murderer. It took her a long time to come to terms with that. She still was supporting her son and not wanting to see the bad in him, which makes perfect sense.
No one was in mortal danger when he was run over.
No.
And in this country, in real life, not in a soap, you can't just kill somebody because they killed other people. That's not how it works.
No.
You can't just run someone over. He
wasn't a threat.
Not
at that very moment,
I don't think she's wrong. I think Peter did kill him in cold blood. Well, it wasn't cold blood. He was het up. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm really interested to see what all the other characters say. Whether are they all going to band together and say, "Look, let's just lie and say that."
It's not going to be interesting if it does that. I think that Jenny is going to reveal what he said to her.
Right.
I don't know what that could be. I promise I won't kill you. It was only a joke.
I wonder what Jenny's feelings were towards Stephen in those final moments, because she did love him, and there were some great scenes over the last 2 weeks of them snuggling up together, and yes, she's realised that he was trying to rob her when he was talking about doing that joint account, and yes, she realised that he's a murderer, but you can't just switch your feelings off for someone like that. And I think that maybe she would have seen that he was just desperate, and maybe he said something to her that she's now going to be on Audrey's side, possibly. Like, you shouldn't have killed Stephen.
I don't know what you could possibly have said.
He was a good guy that made some bad decisions.
In such a small amount of time that he had to say to her, that could have switched her from, you're going to kill me, you bastard, to, oh my gosh, you are the victim. I don't know what it could possibly have been.
I think that Sal could do some lovely scenes of...
she's going to be fantastic.
Wondering and thinking, did he deserve that or not?
Well, it'd be interesting if she didn't even hear what he said.
Yeah.
Because was it Einstein? His final words, no one will ever know what they were, because he was in a room as he was dying with a nurse who couldn't speak German.
Oh, no.
And he said something, and she's like, I don't know what he said.
Anyway, so that's that. That's setting the story up for later. And then, meanwhile, last scene of the episode, and I'm very glad that
hang on.
What?
Before then, we get Peter.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I've completely missed all that. We see the flash forwards playing out. And
We've been talking about this all episode.
The thing is, we didn't really, as far as I remember, get anything brand new for this. It was a lot of repeats of the flash forwards we'd already seen. There was a little bit more of Peter trying to defend himself, saying, look, he was trying to kill Jenny. I'm not the murderer here. And then... I can't remember what the segue line is to say, I wonder where Tim is, or maybe he's killed Tim.
I hope Tim's not in a boot.
And then we cut to Tim, and you could see clearly what was going to happen.
Peter says, we don't even know if he's killed Tim or something. I'm not the murderer, he's killed 3 people, maybe even 4. And then we cut to Tim.
Cut to Tim, eyes closed, in the boot, and I said to you,
cockroach.
He's going to have his eyes flick open now, isn't he? And what do you know, he did. And I liked the shot at the end where the camera kind of zooms out on a drone above the top of the trees. Very, very
in the
nice.
darkness. So he's there over the weekend now, because we're not having another episode till Monday.
Well, there is no such thing as weekend.
How long has he been in there? He's been in there. Well, he
only 2 days, yeah.
But he's going to be in there for a third day now.
Yeah. Well,
this is getting dangerous because he needs to drink water soon. There was nothing in that boot apart from a can of petrol that got taken out.
I don't think they'll really worry about it.
No, I don't think they will either. And they let Toya sit in the back of a van.
I'm not sure how they're going to find him, apart from the fact that there was that scene in the middle of the episode where a dog comes and has a sniff at the boot. And
I think somebody will have reported it to the police, and the police will come and look at it, because they always, whenever you see an abandoned car, it always has that sticker on it that says "Police aware."
There's always a dog there's always a dog that's able to track things down, isn't there? Because wasn't it a dog that found Rick Neelan's hand or the watch or something?
It was actually a dog that that started digging the foundations for the Bailey's development.
Anyway, that is what happened in Coronation Street this week. So, you said that you didn't know what to make of it at the beginning of this. Yeah. Now we've been through the whole thing. What are your final thoughts?
I'm not going to say I wasn't disappointed, because I was quite disappointed in the missed opportunities. I thought, like I said, it was a bit rushed. I'd have done with another episode. I really wish that we'd had another episode of Stephen. I think it did feel like the kill was anticlimactic, but if it's going where I think it's going, there was a good reason for it, even if it feels like I've been cheated or something. I'm really mad he didn't kill again. I think that the Monday and the Wednesday were brilliant. I think all the performances were great.
I would say Monday was the best. I would probably even say that Friday was better than Wednesday, because I was getting a bit more annoyed at the Platts silliness.
I didn't mind that at all. I thought that they wasted loads of time on Friday just with loads of fannying about.
Oh, the other funny line that David said was about the roller carpet when they're talking about Stephen. Was it putting him in a bin or something? And David's like, why
throw him in the bin when you...
Oh, no, it was why do you put him in a roof box when a roller carpet will do, which is a nice callback to them and Callum.
Yes. Yeah, there's loads of stuff that we haven't even said happened.
Yeah. We've done the main bits of it.
I think we've almost talked ourselves...
I don't know what it is that made it so anticlimactic. I think it was just that it literally came out of nowhere. It was Peter who didn't really have as much to do with this storyline as I'd wanted it to. It was a final confirmation that he wasn't going to kill anyone, and being hit by a car isn't that exciting a way to go.
It also wasn't like a super dramatic, scary, freakish, like horrific looking death. It was like bonk. People have been in more horrific and scary car crashes and lived on this show.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think it's about Stephen. I think like once he dropped the bottle on the floor, it became Peter's story. And sorry, Stephen, you're as good as dead, so you might as well lay in a body bag, because the show's moved on from you already.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of potential here for this story that I think is going to happen between the Platts, especially Audrey. Like, they all think she's in denial here.
I'm really interested to see what Ken's reaction to this is going to be, because he wasn't there, he hasn't seen it, so he's going to hear about his son being accused of murder. Peter's going to be saying, Dad, he's going to spin him the story that, no, I needed to rescue Jenny, and so Ken's probably going to take his side.
Yeah, he's going to believe him.
Ken's going to be so upset, I would hope, that Peter has killed somebody. I think that's ripe for some great scenes.
Now, I mean, again, I don't want to keep tooting my own horn here, but when we did our Stephen's, who should Stephen have killed, Adam was one of my selections, and I said that the reason why was so that it would spark a Platt versus Barlow's feud, and this looks like that's what could happen.
Yeah, I wonder, like...
But then
I'm really interested to see what lots of the characters react to this. Like, what's Gail going to say? Is she going to side with her brother? The problem, I suppose, with Gail is that she's been involved in this story so little. We've barely seen her. since Stephen's been back, so I don't really know what their relationship is supposed to be. David, is he going to be that upset that Peter killed his uncle? I don't know.
No, he's just going to make a sarcastic joke.
Yeah.
He's going to make some kind of joke about, there's no inheritance, so I don't really care.
Yeah. I don't know. So, I think we've finished. I would like to give a quick shout out to all the behind the scenes stuff that Corrie's been putting on. As much as Corrie's social media is in the doghouse with me for spoiling that bottle to the next scene, I did appreciate, like, there was behind the scenes stuff at the canal. There was an interview with Todd Boyce that went up there today. There was a whole thing which was here's what you saw on screen, whilst also here's what we saw being filmed. I'd love that if they did this more. There was a behind the scenes at the airport that we watched, wasn't there? That was all great. Love all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for that, Coronation Street.
We got to see a goodbye message from Todd Boyce.
We did, yes.
I love him so much. I wish he was still in it.
I think, when we eventually do our Stephen Reid character profile, which, is looking likely to be next week. Sorry, spoiler alert. I'd be interesting to say now that we'll be removed from the immediacy of tonight's episode, and what's our final conclusions going to be about how it all ended, and how does he rank up against the other serial killers? Should he rank against the likes of Hillman and Platt, or should he be...
Platt?
Sorry, Hillman and... who's the other one? Pat, that's it. or should he be like, he's only a comedy one after all, he's more of a John Stape, I don't know. But I very much enjoyed this story. Although it got a bit boring and businessy at times, and although it didn't always go the way I wanted it to, it was a very entertaining 12 months for me. So thank you very much, Ian McLeod and co, for coming up with the idea and keeping us
brilliant. I loved it so much. I was so excited. Like, this has been a real journey for us too on the show, because we, like, you guys all know how we found out. It was really special and exciting. It's been a fab time. I love the character. I think they did such a brilliant job of, like, turning this incredibly minor side character into a super important...
It's a character that everybody's got an opinion of, which you certainly couldn't say about him before.
I know
whether the good or the bad.
I know that, people will say they hate him and they don't, there are lots of different comments. I don't agree with anybody who thinks that he wasn't a brilliant performer. I think you've got to be a bit mad to think that you're correct in saying that. I think I did a quick...
People can think that if they want. He was very over the top and theatrical, and I just enjoyed that.
Well, that's the point of the thing. If he was okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue about it because the person who's saying it's not even here. I did a quick poll, and I got 60% hate and 40% love, which I think is fair enough, because I think a lot of people didn't even like Pat Phelan, and we think he was great. A lot of people just really don't like this sort of storyline to begin with. So to get that percentage, I think is really good. I think a lot of people got won over by the sheer camp of the story.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that Todd Boyce has said in his exit interview on their social media. Like, I hope some of you come round to liking me a little bit more over the year, because I felt that towards the beginning of this year, end of last year, there was a lot more hatred towards Stephen than there was at the end. So it's good that he was able to win round some fans with his bonkers antics.
I've always been 100% reader.
So the time has come to score this week's and get our character of the week.
Well, it's Stephen.
Clearly Stephen, character of the week, no questions there. What am I scoring it? I loved the majority of this. Every night when we sat down to watch Coronation Street, I was very excited. I loved how we were kept guessing all the time about who's he bumped off, or is such and such person in danger. The stuff with Tim and the ties on Monday, the tie strangulation on Monday was fun. David did have some great lines. Loved that Jenny was a central character. I don't know who's going to say it first. Who's going to say it? Do you know what score you're going to give it? I think... See, if I compare this to, say, the Coronation Street week, it doesn't compare. I absolutely adored, and in the future I'll always say, yeah, whatever the naysayers say, I love that. And I don't think I can universally say I like this week as much. It didn't grab me quite so much. And there were the bits that I didn't like, so I'm just going to come right out of it and say that I am going to give this week's Coronation Street 4 sheets to the wind out of 5.
Okay.
What about you?
I really, really enjoyed Monday and Wednesday. There's always going to be that tinge of regret at the end of a story when you know that it's the end. I always feel sad at the end of things. It always makes me feel annoyed whether something's over.
I remember 2 weeks ago on the podcast you said, I hope he doesn't go on that Friday the 13th episode. It feels like it's going to happen too quickly. I'm not ready for him to go yet. Do you think that they could and should have strung this out until Christmas or something? Because I'm sure that early on in the year, Ian McLeod did an interview and he said, this Stephen story is going to keep running till the end of the year. I think maybe people inferred from that he was talking about Christmas, when I would thought that he probably knew that it was going to end in Super Soap Week. Some people I've seen say, they brought the ending forward because they saw that it was unpopular. I hope that that's not true, and I think it's probably not. But I was surprised how I was able to come round to the idea that this was his last week. It definitely didn't feel 2 weeks ago that he was ready to go, but I think, it was okay towards the end. He had a good exit. He had centre stage for a whole week.
Yeah, you can't complain about how much screen time Stephen got in his final week, for sure.
Which you can't say about Pat
I would have
Finger.
given this another few months myself, I would have given him at least another kill.
That's my biggest regret in this.
Mm-hmm.
What's your score?
I thought I was gonna go
Start avoiding your score, Gemma. Come on.
I'm going to give this week 4.5.
What? You're giving it more than me?
Yeah.
I felt that you were more disappointed than me.
If my theory is correct and it's heading to a different stage...
Yeah, it clearly is.
It better be a long one that takes a while to sort of get through, and it better be far-reaching. Otherwise, we've wasted a character, Stephen.
Do you think that Peter is going to get sent down, or...
Personally, I can't see how anyone could think that he was justified. I mean, there's going to be Peter fans who are going to say... Because it always makes me feel straight. Like, remember with the whole Amy and... what's his face? Aaron. And we watched it on the screen happen in front of our eyes, and people still couldn't. Even when it was explained in excruciating detail in the show and the podcast what exactly happened, they still did not believe it when they saw it with their own eyes. There's still going to be people who, if what I'm saying, I'm not wrong. He dropped the bottle, you heard it, and then we saw him with nothing in his hands, and Audrey said he didn't have anything in his hands. Peter shouldn't have run him over. There was no reason for him to have hit him with his car. No. And he killed him. So he should go to prison.
Has Peter been thrown under the bus by this story? Or will we be like... No, can you imagine years to come and where Tracy's like, I murdered someone, and Peter's like, so did I.
Okay.
Or is this the end for him?
No, because although I think he shouldn't have done it, I completely sympathise and understand why he did it. And I think the more interesting thing is, where do you draw the line? This is fiction, so I feel quite comfortable in saying that although this was actually murder, I think he should get away with it, because we know that Stephen was a wrong 'un and he did kill people, and he made Carla's life hell, and he stole all of the money and everything.
Yeah.
Are they going to get the money back now? They must do.
I guess so.
Because he wouldn't have spent it on anything except taxis. So
travel supplies.
I think this is a moral dilemma more than anything. How much do you think Peter deserves redemption or understanding or compassion for killing Stephen? Because he didn't have to do it.
Yeah, no.
And I think a lot of, like with everything else, a lot of people are going to be clouded by how much they like the character.
Yeah. I've just got on my phone here the exit scene again. I just want to be absolutely sure that he's not got this bottle. So Jenny's run away here. Peter, Yeah, I've got the volume off, but it looks like he didn't have the bottle. I was just
bottle noise. There's a bottle noise that you didn't hear.
I was I just watching that again. How Stephen was squirming on the floor there.
It was horrible.
It was pretty grisly, wasn't it? Good job. Yeah. So 4.5 from you, 4 from me. Okay, well, who'd have thought?
What did I score it out of? Did I say?
No, I don't know whether you did. Do you want to go for one?
Murderous Barlow's.
Murderous Barlow's tame.
He's a murderous Barlow.
My backup one was Boyfriend Eating Hamsters, which was the reference to the thing on the front of the magazine that Jenny was reading the other day. But I'm going for Sheets.
I'm just watching this in like the slowest possible mode to see whether he's got anything in his hand.
Yeah, you can't really tell, can you?
No, he doesn't.
No, he's not. He
didn't have anything in his
hand.
hand.
Peter, you murderer.
Yeah.
I say it's racist.
What?
Against Canadians.
Oh yeah, it is. I tell you what, the commission, the Canadian embassy needs to complain to Ofcom about this blatant act of. I mean, are we at war with Canada?
Is that how that went down?
We can't though, can we? Because we got the same king.
Oh, yeah.
What would Charles do? Be like, this is really awkward. Mum never told me what to do in case this happens.
Right, we're waffling. We've been waffling for far too long about this. I'm really interested to hear what everybody else thought about this. Did you think it was a letdown at all? Did you love it completely and unconditionally?
Tell us what you thought.
Tell us what you thought.